What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the first stream of the week.
I don't know why. It feels like it's been a while since we've actually been on here. So looking forward to chat with everybody. Looking forward to everybody talking to everybody. Hopefully everybody's off to a good start to their week.
Absolutely. No, we were just talking about how I woke up today and my keyboard had decided it's one of them Bluetooth ones with you put batteries in it, AA batteries. The batteries had exploded inside of it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to stream today because I need a keyboard to operate the computer.
I've never even heard of that happen.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I don't even know how's that work.
We got another keyboard in the house, so we're here.
Always have a backup plan.
Backup plan. What's going on, Alex? How y'all doing?
What's going on, Alex?
Yo, I know for a fact that Nick does factor in Vegas odds into his projections for high-scoring offenses. That is something that he does.
And defense. Yes. I do it for both.
Yep.
I do it for both, Alex. At least definitely now. Here's the simple answer to that. Vegas is, when it comes to sports, on average, Vegas is smarter than all of us. Vegas is, they have the best people working for them. It's why
Well,
Vegas
they have all
is
the
who
money
they
in the
are.
world. They can pay all the analytics people to do all of that work for them, so they have those numbers and they
Yep.
have the percentages. They have everything available to them. They've probably had analytics divisions for the NFL before NFL teams. Some NFL teams had analytics divisions. Vegas probably had
They
analytics
absolutely
divisions.
did.
So
They
yeah,
absolutely did. They have analytics departments for their analytics departments.
yeah,
They
Yeah.
are the sharpest minds when it comes to doing these predictions, these projections, and obviously sports. It was a crapshoot. Some people think Vegas plays a huge role in outcomes of certain things, but Vegas knows what they're doing.
What's the best way to come out on top of something is to rig it.
They wouldn't be
before
the
it happens.
house. Yep. They wouldn't be
Nobody-
Vegas if
yeah.
it wasn't for the people that they employ to do these types of things. So yeah, I mean, we can project all we want. You guys can project all you want. They do it on another level. And so I do factor in what determines their outcomes that they let us know about in May and June and July. If even in today in the Discord, which by the way, if you're not in our Discord, there is a link to our Discord in the description of this video and every video on our channel.
Yep.
You can keep the conversation going at any point, anytime you want to ask a question or bring up a topic of conversation. That's what that's for.
Yeah,
But
you can
in the
crowdsource
Discord,
things. You can,
Yep.
you'll get access to the general channel as soon as you join. If you're not a member, and while we do answer trade questions or whatever questions you may have in there from time to time, we do not look at it at as much as we look at the members only chat. But you can, if we don't give you an answer for your question, you can crowdsource an answer for your question from the other people that are in our Discord. So that's what it's for. But continue.
Absolutely. Iron, one of our members, asked a question about top score, or at least today, right now, our top projected defenses for the 2022 season. Right now, there's no statistics to go off of, right? You're not looking at defenses last year. Well, you are, but you're not looking at defensive stats and defensive finishes last year and just automatically saying, well, the best 5 defenses last year are my top 5 defenses this year. Yeah. There's some carryover, but it's not full.
No, but you look at a team like the 2021 Washington football team. They were coming off, I believe it was a hot 2020.
Yep.
With Chase Young and a couple of the other players, younger players showing out on that team, and them being one of the stronger defensive teams in the NFL, to, I wouldn't say falling off, but failing to reach their potential that we saw the year before in 2021. Defenses vary. It's very rare to see defenses string together multiple continuous years of high-end production. You really have to be one of the best units out there. And even then, weird things happen. Injuries, schedules, just weird things happen. So,
right.
Yeah.
With that, I'm just going off of Vegas's win totals right now, because at the end of the day, every defense is going to get sacks and turnovers. But, newsflash, some get more than others. Hashtag analysis. So at least right now, I'm just looking at who are we expecting. And when I say we, I mean Vegas. Who is Vegas expecting to be good? It's kind of simple. Good teams play with leads. Teams that play with leads are more likely to force their opponents into more mistakes. So right now, all I can do is look at projected win totals for each team. And today, right now, if I'm drafting and defense is involved in that, those are the defenses I'm looking at. The teams with the highest win total projections right now are the Packers, the Bucks, the Bills, and the Rams. And then you got other teams like the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Cowboys. They're all in there. Right now, some collection of that group in no particular order would be the defenses that I'm targeting. Is there going to be a diamond in the rough? Absolutely. But we're probably not going to identify it until August. So right now, we can just only go off of, again, data from Vegas. And that's what I use to, right now in May, before training camp, to chart out my top projected defenses for the incoming season.
So there you go, Alex. Thank you for the question. That was a good question.
But offense is, and offense, again, offense kind of plays to the same idea. But it's a little bit more of a crapshoot because bad teams, those offenses are more likely to be trying more in garbage time. So it's a little different.
I'm gonna push back on that because the good teams now aren't resting on their laurels in the fourth quarter. They're throwing.
Yeah.
Just like it was the first quarter in the fourth quarter. The Bills do that. The Chiefs do that. The Chargers started to do that. The Bengals do that. There are multiple teams in the NFL where it doesn't matter if they're up 20 points in the third quarter. In that fourth quarter, they're going to go out and sling the ball. They're not running the ball into the ground and running out the clock as much. There's still those teams out there.
That's how you get in trouble.
Right. Yeah, so I am going to push back a little bit on that. But for the most part, yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, hopefully that helps.
And User Nerd, thank you for joining us. If you're at the 201, I would not go either of those running backs.
Is Rachaad White there?
I know the chalk is to go James Cook, and I know people are hype on Isaiah Spiller because of the landing spot and because of what we thought about him pre-Senior Bowl, pre-Combine. We thought of him as the second best running back in the class. He was exposed over the course of the last few months prior to the draft, and then he goes to one of the best situations he could in the Chargers. And everybody is maybe not all the way back on him, but they're willing to reach in the early second to go and get him. Same with James Cook. James Cook was thought of to be a late second-round pick. The landing spot pushed him up to early second-round pick, maybe even late first if the person that's drafting overdrafts him. But I wouldn't go either of those running backs. Are you dead? My first question back to you would be, are you dead set on taking a running back here? Does your team absolutely need a running back at this second-round pick spot? Because I mean, if you're dead set on one of those guys, I would trade down, first off. Trade down to the 205, see if you can trade down to the 205, and then still get your Isaiah Spiller there.
I would just take Rachaad White if you to that point of if you're dead set on a running back, if he's there. If Rachaad White is there, that's who I would take. And I know there are long-term concerns with him about, we bring this up every offseason. When's Tom Brady going to retire? When's he finally going to hang it up? But we're expecting the 2023 class to have more long-term stability at the running back position than some of these second-tier running backs outside of Hall and Walker. So we might be getting only, 1 to 2 year options anyway. And for me, Rachaad White is the one in the best situation. Ronald Jones is gone. He was in the doghouse last year, and when I say, more like consistently with Bruce Arians, Leonard Fournette should be drafted like an RB1 this year and will get an RB1 workload. But if there's any indication early out of OTAs, it's that Rachaad White is out there as kind of like the third down back for Tom Brady. Led his team in college in receiving last year at the running back position. Not all the, led the backfield. This is a good player in a good offense. Rachaad White would, if he's there, he would be my guy.
And there was a report earlier this past week, or maybe right around last weekend, this past weekend, maybe yesterday, on the 14th. Bucs running back coach Todd McNair said Leonard Fournette ad-libs his routes at times and can end up in the wrong place. And he alluded through the what he said that one of the reasons that they were looking at Rachaad White was because they wanted somebody who they could rely on being in the place that he was scripted to be in for Tom Brady, because that's something that Tom Brady prioritizes. And we talked about it a lot before the draft and when Rachaad White was drafted. Tom Brady doesn't typically love playing with rookies. But this specifically, Rachaad White, based off of this report, looks like one of those rare rookies who could contribute year one in a Tom Brady offense in his last year, where he'll need all the vets around him to ensure that, I mean, we all know this about Tom Brady. That's one of the reasons why N'Keal Harry was panned coming out. It's one of the reasons why running backs on the Patriots typically took a year to really see the field, because Tom Brady likes playing with vets, likes playing with people who know the playbook, know where they're going to need to be on any given play, and are there for him to be a safety valve. It looks like Rachaad White could be the rare rookie who does this. So if you're looking at running back, I don't hate going Rachaad White trend here. I get the James Cook. Because if you're projecting to 2023, Devin Singletary is in a contract year. He shouldn't be there in 2023. But I want to ask you a question. If you're looking at James Cook at the 201, what's to say that the Bills don't go out and draft another running back highly in 2023, considering they probably still won't have a ton of weaknesses on their team, and it will rise to the top as one of the weaknesses if they let go of Devin Singletary after this year going into next year, even though they drafted James Cook in the second round. So yeah, everything looks great for James Cook on paper in 2023 and beyond. But the Bills might just go back to the well. They've been doing it in the third round repeatedly. This is just the first time they did it in the second round. But if you got the 201 and the 204, if you don't want to go Rachaad White at 201, I would just trade back and then draft whoever falls to you at 204. And then if you can trade that 201 for a 2023 first, we've seen that happen. If you can trade the 201 into multiple seconds, I would see if you could do something like that too. But I agree. Rachaad White is the play there at the turn, the second round turn, if you are dead set on going running back.
And if you want Cook at the end of the day, because you also have the 204 and you can double dip, if you think somebody like a Rachaad White might be there at the 204, you can take a chance on one of them hitting. James Cook's ADP and stock is probably a little bit higher than Rachaad White's now, per the consensus. So if you want to grab James Cook, if you think Rachaad White might still be there at the 204, that's a fine plan of attack. But yeah, this Bills backfield could be difficult to predict this year. Plus, Josh Allen continues to vulture all of the work at the goal line.
Right.
Could James Cook become sort of that, obviously this is kind of apples and oranges comparison, but, Cole Beasley is gone. There could be some short work available. They did sign Jamison Crowder, and Dawson Knox is still there. It's hard to envision James Cook being anything more than an RB3.
Now, we praised, and we're going into the weeds here, but we praised the Patriots last year for going out and paying two tight ends, top-tier tight end money, instead of going out and signing two wide receivers to top-tier wide receiver money, because it saved them money on the cap. They can be utilized in different situations. And ultimately, Hunter Henry was basically a wide receiver for them for the majority of the year last year. Jonnu Smith, not so much. But what if this was the same type of move by the Bills? They know wide receivers cost more money than running backs, but they know that James Cook can be used basically as a wide receiver close to the line of scrimmage. So maybe in 2023, the move is to move James Cook into a passing down situation role, strictly a la Cole Beasley. Once Jamison Crowder is not there anymore, once O.J. Howard is not there anymore. Possibility, but that's a lot of speculation, and you gotta do a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm not buying into James Cook because I think I can buy James Cook halfway through the season, 3/4 of the way through the season at a discount. Everybody's hype on James Cook. Everybody has stars in their eyes when they're looking at James Cook because, Bills, Dalvin Cook's brother, this could be great.
Right.
but I think halfway through the season, he won't have put up as many points as everybody or the yardage or the totals and all that everybody thinks he's going to put up now.
I was hoping for, yeah.
And you can probably get him at a discount then. So that's the move I'm making if I do like James Cook for 2023, is I'm waiting on him. So that's also something that you could do using Nerd. But if you like your guy, go out and get your guy. Nothing wrong with that. What do you think about Alex's comment there?
Just let me give. I was looking at some Leonard Fournette stuff. Yeah, I mean, right, at defense, I mean, we're talking about an entire unit and not one single player, so it's a little harder to project. So, yeah, just chase the good teams for now. Chase the teams that we expect to be good. Everybody. Here's the thing about a team like the Packers, because I mentioned them first as one of the defenses that I would be targeting. We love to crap on their off seasons every single year. It always seems like they do the wrong thing, and then they go 12-4. As long as Aaron Rodgers is there playing football, that team will be playing with leads. And that defense has got a lot of talent on it anyway. They just locked up Jair Alexander. He's a top 3 corner in the league. Zadarius Smith is still there. It's a good defense.
They couldn't rely on it all last season. Still made it into the playoffs.
Well, if he bounces back, then that gives them a boost.
Yep.
There's a lot of talent.
What's going on,
this
Sam?
defense.
Thanks for joining as a member, bro.
Yes, sir.
And that was 8 gummy, bro. Come on now.
Come on now. So yeah. A team like the Packers, we always like to poo-poo their offseason, but then they have a great regular season. So that's a type of team that right now today, it's like, okay, yes, it's hard to project 11 players versus 1, but give me teams that are set up in good situations to win for that year, and I'll figure out the rest later.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
So, yep.
And user Nerd, let us know how the draft goes there for you. When's your draft? Let us know. Are you on the clock right now with the 201?
Yeah, is this like a slow draft? I like slow drafts. Gives me time to think.
And Sam, what's poppin', man? Thanks for joining us a member again. What running back would you target in a trade as a buy low player with possible upside looking to make moves? 6 Gummy John.
I mean, there's always a variety of ways that you can go. I mean, so one of the tidbits from today was that Philip Lindsay signed with the Colts, right? Does the Nyheim Hines owner all of a sudden get worried about Nyheim Hines because Philip Lindsay's in the fold? Like, there's this is just a piece. If you're talking about RB1s, there's no such thing as a buy low situation there. But like a decent little flyer, there's one that comes to mind. I've seen a lot of people targeting players like Travis Etienne this offseason, J.K. Dobbins this offseason, but those guys are major question marks coming off big time injuries.
Those aren't buy lows to me. Honestly, if you're looking at a buy low,
because he's an unknown.
If you're looking at a buy low from me, it's anybody who was negatively affected by the draft. We haven't seen these rookies yet. Everybody's hype on these rookies. We just talked about James Cook. I'm sure you can get Devin Singletary at a discount, and that's a buy low for me because he's still their RB1. He is. James Cook is going to be their J.D. McKissick of the future. Devin Singletary is still their RB1 right now. You look at Breece Hall. Michael Carter can be had for peanuts right now. Nobody is on the Michael Carter train, and for good reason. We don't expect him to be all that much outside of an injury. But if an injury were to occur to Breece Hall, RB1 workload for Michael Carter in a ascending offense. Mm-hmm. So based on what you would have to give up for a running back who was decent last year in start work, a young running back who was decent last year in start work in an ascending offense that just reinvested into the O-line as well, Michael Carter fits the bill for me as a running back that you can buy low on based on what happened in the draft. Rashad Penny. You can probably buy low on Rashad Penny because everybody is hype on and or worried about Kenneth Walker. Those are the
hard for
types
me
of
to advise
situations
on
that I'm
Penny.
looking at.
It's hard to. I don't. Yeah.
But I mean, he technically has RB1 upside if Kenneth Walker either suffers an
Penny will
injury
go
or
into the
doesn't
season
get up
as
to
the
speed.
starter. I feel good about Walker personally.
I do too. I'm just saying these are. What do you think you can buy Michael Carter for right now? What do you think you can buy Devin Singletary for right now? What do you think you can buy Rashad Penny for right now? They're probably all pretty cheap.
Singletary might cost like a second round pick.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head.
With the pick back, honestly, I'll give you a second. You give me Devin Singletary and third in 2 years or something like that. That would be something
it would have to
probably
be, like,
get done.
Pushed out, yeah.
But all those other guys, like you can give up a couple of thirds and get Michael Carter. You can give up a couple of, I mean, maybe not it might be a second for Rashad Penny and a future third too. That might be the situation you're looking for there or looking at there.
I mean, hell, does Saquon fit the bill? I think he might. What's Saquon's ADP?
As a buy low?
Yeah. Let me see his ADP.
Depends how much you're willing to give up. He does technically qualify as a buy low.
I think he does.
But it depends on how much you're going to have to give up.
Relative to his expectations. Saquon's ADP right now, according to Underdog Fantasy, is 27. He's the RB 14. Now remember, weeks 3 and weeks 4 last year, he popped off. And then he suffered the ankle injury that derailed the rest of his season. It looked like he was finally rounding into form those last couple weeks of the season where it looked like he was finally healthy. Now the Giants have Brian Daboll. The vibes are better around the Giants. They improved the offensive line.
My problem is you're still going to have to give up a significant amount to get Barkley on your team. Barkley hasn't quite reached Zeke territory where people are willing to offload him for a second and a third. Like he hasn't.
No. I hear you on that, but again, when you ask buy low, it's all relative. And relative to projections and expectations and what we think of Saquon Barkley as a football player, he can be had right now for significantly cheaper than had he made it through last season fully healthy. Because last year, if weeks 3 and weeks 4 were any indication, it looked like Saquon was rounding into form again. He suffered another injury that set him back. So obviously, if you're concerned about that, take it or leave it. But relative to what somebody like Saquon would normally cost, he's a buy low. Again, it's all relative.
I mean, one guy that's screaming at me right now based on what I was talking about with the losers of the NFL draft narrative is a guy that you have been pounding the table for all season, and Josh Jacobs. Zamir White is there.
Yeah.
They continuously have added running backs throughout the offseason, but Zamir White is there, and people might be worried that Zamir White is going to take Josh Jacobs' job sooner than later, even though Zamir White can't catch passes to save his life, and had 2 ACL tears in college as well, which is not something we've never seen Josh Jacobs really deal with. Significant injuries. He's always been a running back that stayed healthy, and he can catch passes.
He sloshed through some injuries last year, but
I don't think you're going to have to pay as much to get him as you would even a Saquon. And you might end up getting equitable value.
Oh,
because Jacobs has been a high-end RB2, low-end RB1 for the majority of his career, and he's still pretty young. He's 24 years old right now.
Yeah, he's 23, 24.
So Josh Jacobs is absolutely a buy for me if I'm trying to contend. I mean, he's young, has competition in the backfield that you can point to as a detractor from his value if you're buying him, and he's been a high-end RB2 for his entire career.
Mm-hmm. And
is now playing on the best team he's ever played with, top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of that, there's concern about, you can determine how you want to navigate these waters, but there's now concern about like what's Jacobs' long-term situation look like, because the Raiders declined his 5th-year option. So that doesn't spell great news for his long-term outlook on the Raiders. It doesn't mean he's done it with Vegas. It doesn't mean that he still couldn't re-sign with the team. But that's another talking point. If you want to reach out to the Jacobs owner and just say, hey, you can unload a guy with a lot of question marks about his future, who probably doesn't have RB1 upside anyway. These are the talking points you can use. I'm not off of Jacobs. So,
no. And honestly, the depressed price point that you're going to be able to get with Jacobs right now, considering Zamir White is there, Kenyon Drake is there, you can even mention Brandon Bolden is there, Josh McDaniels like to use multiple running backs. I mean, you can use all these things to knock his value down even further than it is down right now, and he's a guy that I like.
So there you go. I didn't know you were coming around to him.
Did this dude just say Jacobs has always stayed healthy?
He sloshed through
relatively to the other running
year.
backs in the league, relative to Saquon Barkley, who we just brought up, who has been perpetually injured for the past 2 seasons. Yeah, I'd say Josh Jacobs has found a way to stay healthy for the majority of his career.
He's found a way to play.
Okay, well, play through injury, sure.
Yeah, he's played through it. Like last year, he played through injuries. But he played.
Yeah, but every running back's playing through injury. So if you're seeing the field, if you're not being taken out of the game plan, if you're not taken off of the field, to me, even though you might be the running back in question might be dealing with something, they're not off the game day roster. They're playing. They're giving you something in the fantasy point box score department. So that's what I mean. Yeah, he might. Yes, he hasn't stayed 100% healthy his entire career, but has he ever had season-ending injuries like Saquon has? No.
No, I guess not. So. No, I guess not. No, I don't think so.
But I don't mean to shoot down your comment, Ray, but I am shooting down your comment. But what's going on? How you doing? And Rojo, what's happening?
What's up, Rojo? Oh, he's suggesting Patterson. The only thing with Patterson is he no-showed in the fantasy playoffs. Like, he got you there.
And he has so much more competition. He has so much more competition. Last year, his competition was a Calvin Ridley whose heart wasn't in it, and Kyle Pitts, who was seeing his first real NFL action in the NFL.
Mike Davis was his running mate in the backfield.
Right. I mean, and Mike Davis provided nothing. You got an incoming rookie who's young, has fresh legs in Tyler Algiers. You have Drake London. Kyle Pitts has been there a year. You got Brian Edwards coming over from the Raiders. They just signed, for what it's worth, Geronimo Allison. And we're not saying that Geronimo Allison is great shakes in the NFL, but he's better than Frank Darby, who was basically the second or third wide receiver.
He's better than Frank Darby
when Cordell Patterson was in there. So.
Oh, sorry, Rojo. Got you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Got you. Yep. Yeah. I agree with that.
I agree.
In that case, I agree.
I thought you were responding to his first question.
Yeah.
So if you were responding to his second question with Patterson, we agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Who are some other guys that come to mind?
Really difficult to trust. A darling last year? I mean, off the top, I'd have to look at some ADPs and see where people are drafting some of the guys that popped off last year. Somebody might say James Conner. I think he's being drafted where he should be. He's going to get an RB1 workload this year. I mean, is Gabe Davis getting overdrafted? I think he might be.
I don't know.
I think he might be.
I mean, we had the whole discussion throughout the offseason that you should be selling Gabe Davis for a first if
Dalton
you can get
Schultz
him for a first. And then this draft happened, and they didn't pick up a wide receiver until the 5th round. So it's kind of hard to say.
Dalton Schultz. There's a lot of middling tight ends. Like Dalton Schultz might be considered a darling last year, who feels like he's way overpriced this year.
I mean, I hate to say it, but does Debo count having gotten 8 rushing touchdowns as a wide receiver?
Maybe.
I'm just talking at the end of the year box score. He was the number 3 wide receiver in the league, but he had 8 touchdowns on the ground, which is not sustainable for a wide receiver. If we're talking about Cordarrelle Patterson not having sustainable production as a hybrid, I mean, does Deebo Samuel count? I'm not saying he's not going to be a wide receiver 1, but I don't know if he's going to be a top 3 wide receiver again. Top 12, sure.
Sure. And this was the first year where he truly avoided any type of injury issues. Again, we never project or chart out injuries, but that's been a part of Deebo's career dating back to college. He hasn't made it through an entire season healthy. Now they draft a guy. They go back to the well at running back, presumably to take Deebo out of the backfield. Now, even with all of his backfield work, he still had like 1,400 receiving yards. Didn't he? Am I saying that right? It sounds wild to think about, but I think he did do that.
Say it again. I was reading.
Didn't he have like 1,400 receiving yards last year? Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So he's still going to be a top 12 wide receiver. I just don't know if he can be top 3, considering 365 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. You take those away,
I think
he's
they
still
want
a wide
to take that
receiver
out
1.
of him. I think they want to scale. They want to severely scale his backfield work. They want to scale that back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a little less intrigue in Deebo's Swiss Army knife potential, if we want to call it that. So, yeah, he might fit that mold. By the way, Using Nerd said his draft is this Saturday, so.
All right, man. Well, good luck. If you have any more questions for us, let us know. You already know you can throw them in the Discord too if we are not live. But yeah, I hope we helped with your 201, 204 question. So there you go.
Yeah,
you got a little time. Honestly, at 201, I would see if I could trade back. If I was you, that would be my move. Not until the draft. I mean, but I would
see how things shake out.
I would at least start talking to people, see where people are at.
Yeah, see how things shake out. What's up, Johnny?
What's going on, Johnny?
Johnny's trying to get DK.
For CEH, you're going to have to give up a lot, man.
You're going to have to give him more. Yeah, I mean, that's
at least
he knows
a first.
That.
At least a first.
Yeah, it's going to take a first-round pick.
Maybe even a first and a second in CEH, honestly. And even then, that might get it done. That might not.
Yeah. It might.
It might. It depends where the other team is at. Maybe the other team is fluttered at wide receiver and needs some running back help, and maybe that the other owner sees that as equitable value, CEH in a first.
Yeah, I guess, Johnny, this is where some context might be a little bit helpful. What's the DK owner's situation? Are they looking for pieces that can help them win this year? Are they looking for picks because it's maybe a rebuilding situation, and maybe they're concerned about DK's long-term prospects now that Russell Wilson is gone? Like, what's the situation with the DK owner's team? And then you might find it a little easier to build a package based off of that, knowing
he needs RB badly. Okay. Or you need RB badly, or he does. He does.
I imagine he does because CEH is the offer.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you could start with Clyde. A first-round pick is I have to imagine it's going to have to be involved. See if Clyde in a first gets it done. If it doesn't, talk to the guy. See what he's thinking. See how he's feeling. See what else he's looking for. How much more does he expect? Does he want a second first round pick thrown on top of that? Then you might want to hold on that, because that would be that's a lot to offer up. But if Clyde in a first doesn't get it done, I mean, if it does, great. I would say that's fine to pull the trigger on that. If it's not enough, what else is he looking for? What else does he want? Just tell him to be up front. That keeps trade talks the easiest. If he wants a running back, okay, you're offering Clyde. Do you have a depth running back that you don't care to part with? If that helps sweeten the pot, you're not giving up a guy who you're going to be relying on week in, week out, plus the first round pick.
And Johnny, did you already have your draft? Can you give up picks in the 2022 NFL draft to get DK? Because I would be much happier giving up a 2022 first and CEH than a 2023 first and CEH, especially if that first this year is later. So that also factors into the conversation when we're talking about first round picks.
Mm-hmm.
But Rojo, what do we think about Amon-Ra? What do you think about Amon-Ra?
Everybody's favorite talking point this year.
Is it?
That's what I see on fantasy Twitter everywhere. I just want to know. Let me look at his ADP. That's 71. That's not that bad. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 35. I think that's more than fair. If he was being drafted 20 spots higher, I might have a little bit more concern. But with an ADP of 71, he's a clear wide receiver 3 off the board. Look like we might be. I don't know if it'll be week 1, but we might see Jameson Williams this year. I was originally thinking he might be like a red shirt for 2022, but it sounds like his recovery is going well. Again, I don't know if we'll see him week 1, but it sounds like we'll start to see him this year. Now, maybe the news out of Lions camp is they're just spewing optimism because they don't need to put out injury reports or worry about any week-to-week status updates right now. So they want to give all of the glowing reports that they can. Could be coach talk, could be a smokescreen. We won't know until training camp when Jameson's actually needs to be out there and playing with the first team offense. But they will be getting some pieces back. They added DJ Chark for whatever that's worth. So there will be a little bit more competition for targets. Remember, toward the end of the season when Amon-Ra was putting up like top 5
he was
numbers.
Getting 11, 12 targets a game.
Because they were down all of their other weapons. I still like Amon-Ra. I think that price is fine. I don't think you have to overspend to get him. If you reach 15, 20 spots, then I'll call it what I just called it. I think that would be a reach because we're not expecting top 5 weekly results for him again. But for him to be drafted like a wide receiver 3 when I fully think he can just finish the season as a wide receiver 2 or better, I think that's fine. In Dynasty, I mean, for all those same talking points that I just talked about, well, Hawkinson's back. DeAndre Swift will be back. They added DJ Chark. They drafted Jameson Williams. Hold Amon-Ra. I wouldn't sell Amon-Ra. Unless somebody's willing to severely overpay. But I mean, I think he's going to be fine this year. I think the Lions are trending up. They got a great offensive line. We've seen Jared Goff support high-end fantasy talent before. Some of that was with the Rams and getting to play with
in 2018. All right. So what do the Detroit Lions have right now? Speedster, 1 or 2 speedsters on the outside.
Yeah.
And a slot receiver. A very good tight end.
Yep.
And a very good running back.
Yeah.
That's exactly, you could argue about tight end, but that's exactly the same makeup that the Rams had in 2018 with Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Todd Gurley. exactly the same. Good. Exactly. I mean, T.J. Hawkinson better than better than Tyler Higbee, but basically all the other wide receivers there pretty much equitable in terms of how they're going to be utilized on the field. Robert Woods was the wide receiver 10 that season, and Brandon Cooks was the wide receiver 13 that season. Cooper Kupp, I believe that was the year he sustained an injury, so he did not really factor into the situation. He was wide receiver 47 that year. I believe 47. Only played in 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
But it's clear, wide receiver 10 and wide receiver 13, even if he's only targeting 2 wide receivers, that Jared Goff can supply fantasy value to his players. Now, the distribution of targets is going to be a little bit different in Detroit, the offense that he's playing in, all that. But getting the guy who should be the Robert Woods in this offense at low end our wide receiver 3 prices is something that I would do all day, considering that's where his value is right now. I'm surprised it's that low. I'm surprised his ADP is that low.
It feels low. It is low.
Yeah, I mean, I like Amon-Ra. I like Amon-Ra this year more than I thought he would, considering the ADP.
Yeah, feels like it. I mean, I think it was a little bit higher at the beginning of the offseason. It's tapered off a bit, and now it's like, yeah, that's fine. That's a fine plunge to take for me.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Woods was the wide receiver 10 that year, and the year after that, Robert Woods was the wide receiver 22. So if Amon-Ra can find his way to be the wide receiver 22, if you draft him wide receiver 34, whatever it was, that's a win. That's a win.
Yep.
And in Dynasty, if you can buy Amon-Ra and talk to everybody about Chark being there, Jameson Williams being there, Hawk being there, DeAndre Swift being there, and see if you can knock his price down. Jamal Williams coming back, and see if you can knock his price down a little bit, his price tag down a little bit. Amon-Ra might be an interesting buy in Dynasty post-draft, considering the lack of value on him once Jameson Williams was drafted there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, what about Hunter Renfrow?
I would have to check his ADP, but he's not going to, I mean, he was boosted last year by the fact that the Raiders didn't have anything else. Darren Waller missed a ton of time due to injury. We know what happened with Henry Ruggs. Brian Edwards has yet to pan out. There was nothing else in Vegas last year for Derek Carr to work with. Now, his ADP has tumbled a little bit to around 86. So you could make a similar argument for Hunter Renfrow that we just talked about with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And at an ADP of 86, that's actually a little higher than I thought it might be. Or, sorry, a little lower than I thought it might be. So I don't have a problem with that, but he's not going to... Devontae Adams is going to command a minimum of 150 targets. Darren Waller is going to come back and command 120 targets. Should Renfrow be a wide receiver 3? Yeah. But the work is not going to be there to the level that it was.
Honestly, I'm pushing down that wide receiver 3 value to possibly wide receiver 4.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be. Look, I like Derek Carr. Derek Carr has proven to be a very underrated quarterback. I don't think the fantasy community or the NFL circles give Derek Carr enough credit because he has played well. He is a good quarterback. But, I mean, Devontae Adams is going to command a top 3 target share in the NFL. Hunter Renfrow directly loses from that.
Hunter Renfrow, when Waller was healthy last season, from weeks 1 to week 7 before their bye, was the wide receiver 35 in points per game in standard and the wide receiver 29 in points per game in PPR.
So he's just barely a wide receiver 3.
And he had 2 touchdowns over that 7-week span, which was decent. But then after that bye, touchdown. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns in the last 9 games. and his target totals went up every week to the point where at the end of the season he had finished with 128 targets. He's not getting anywhere near that.
He's not getting that.
And if we're taking into account that sample size from weeks 1 to week 7 where Darren Waller was healthy and Ruggs was healthy and part of the game plan, I mean, Davante Adams is taking more of a target share in this offense than Henry Ruggs ever was. And yes, we expect Waller to be back. And they brought in another running back, yes, one who can't catch passes, but they still have Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake on the roster who can catch passes in the short to intermediate pass game. I mean, Hunter Renfrow was a great story last year. But
does he fit the Darling narrative?
What's that?
Does he fit the Darling narrative?
I don't know if he was anybody's darling last year, but
he had a strong second half of the season.
If they came into this season without having gotten Davante Adams, I would have been like, okay, he can be a wide receiver 2 again. But now I think he's a wide receiver 4. Considering he was a mid-tier wide receiver 2 last year due to injury, he's just outside of darling territory for me.
Okay.
But he's not somebody that I'm looking at drafting at all or having on any of my teams. And
yeah,
honestly, if I have him on my teams, I'm trying to sell him before the season because once the season starts and he's getting, 4 or 5 targets, maybe 6 targets a game, it's not going to look nearly as good for him. It's really not. And yeah. In the 3 boom games that he had last season from weeks 12 to weeks 14, where he averaged over 100 yards a game, 9 targets, 10 targets, 14 targets. He's never getting those target totals in a 3-game stretch with the personnel that's currently on the team. It's just not happening. And yeah, it's just not happening.
No, I agree. It's hard to feel good about his workload, and therefore it's hard to feel good about his production relative to what his, the expectations that he baked into his ADP this year. Yeah. Not totally feeling Hunter Renfrow.
You're going to have to pay more in redraft than he's worth to get him on your team. There's no way you can draft him as a wide receiver 4.
Let me see who else is getting drafted around him. Just because now I'm curious.
And Johnny Jones, you got Jamison Williams and both of Rachaad White and Zamir White. It's a good draft.
It's a good haul.
It's a good draft. So yeah, I mean, if you want to give up CEH, considering you replenish your running backs through the draft, both of those running backs should be good week 1 and into the future. Yeah, I like that. See if you can move CEH in the 23 first.
Just looking at, so again, Hunter Renfrow's ADP is 85.7, so about 86. Just looking up and down the board, looking a little ahead and looking a little behind him. 10 picks earlier, you can have Adam Thielen with an ADP of 78. Rather have that. Sky Moore has an ADP of 82. That's a little ambitious, but people are high on Sky. Brandon Ayuk has an ADP of about 83. I'd rather have that. Tyler Lockett has an ADP of about 88.5. I'd rather have neither. Chris Olave down the board a little bit at an ADP
have every
of 93.
every single one of the guys you listed over Hunter Renfrow.
Garrett Wilson has an ADP of 95. I'd rather have that. Christian Kirk has an ADP of 96.
I mean, Tyler Lockett, you can knock him all you want with no
that
rust.
ADP has plummeted.
If he gets 4 targets, there's a chance that he can take one of those to the house. Hunter Renfrow is not getting 4 targets and taking one of them to the house. That's just not that's not how he plays. That's not his game.
Hunter Renfrow turns 4 targets maybe into 50
than Hunter
yards.
Renfrow.
Yeah, that's fair. And obviously, like, the decreased expectations are baked into this really, really low ADP.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that.
Chris Olave. I'd rather have Chris Olave. We haven't talked
Chris Olave,
any
I'd
at
rather take a
all
chance
about,
on. Garrett
about,
Wilson, I'd rather
about
take a
this
chance
whole
on.
Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave situation that that came to pass over the weekend. So we do have to get to that at some point. But CXK, what's going on?
We can absolutely do that.
Which of these QBs, if any, should I be looking to trade the most in Dynasty for whatever reason? Trevor Lawrence,
trade or
Lance,
trade for?
Pickett, or Tua? I'm guessing trade away.
You're trying to trade away?
Tua.
None.
Tua.
I would say none, but okay. Why Tua?
If you're looking to trade one of these quarterbacks in Dynasty, there's no way I'm trading Trevor Lawrence coming off of a bad rookie year. There's no way I'm trading Trey Lance when I don't know what I have in Trey Lance yet. Considering he's going to be playing, projected to be playing with one of the best, the one player that we've seen out of that group that you can trade right now for more than he's ever been worth ever is Tua. Everybody's hype on Tyreek. Everybody's hype on Waddle being there now in his second year. They got Cedric Wilson. They drafted Eric Ezukanma. They got Gesicki back there for one more year, and Durham Smythe, so they can deploy Gesicki like a wide receiver the way they like to. They have Chase Edmonds there. They got Sony Michel. The Teron Armstead, I believe, went there too.
Yep.
They did the most out of pretty much any team to solidify their offense around Tua. But what if Tua just isn't good? We haven't seen Tua be good. We have not seen Tua be good. So any speculation right now on Tua is all about the players that are playing around him are going to make him better. And that might be the case. But if you're looking at what Tua has done in the NFL so far and what Baker Mayfield has done in the NFL so far, Baker has been way more productive in the NFL on a season-per-season basis than Tua. You can look it up. So right now, if I have those quarterbacks, and I feel confident trading away one of those quarterbacks and still feeling good about my quarterback room, being young, somewhat dual threat. You got your safe guy in Pickett, you got your dual threat guy in Lance, and you got T-Law as your anchor moving forward at quarterback. I would feel comfortable trading away Tua, but again, before the season, before we see Tua, either sink or swim with this new roster that they have around. There's a chance it doesn't work out. And it's a larger chance that people are willing to bet on. I mean, people are all in on Tua. And
he definitely has the highest stock of this crew right now.
Yeah. So what do we talk about a lot? Selling high in Dynasty.
Max value.
This is the highest Tua's value has ever been since he was drafted. Clearing away high. I mean, you can sell him for low-end QB1 prices, and he's never been a low-end QB1.
No.
He's been a middling QB2, low-end QB2 for his entire career thus far. So if you can trade a middling QB2 for low-end to mid-tier QB1 prices, considering Tua is also young, I'd be trying to trade Tua right now.
He would be the pick here just because you're not going to get max value on any of the other three guys. I'll just say this about Tua, though. Mike Gesicki started off the year super hot last year, and then he kind of fell off, right? Jalen Waddle had a nice season as a rookie. He had 104 catches. I think he missed one game due to COVID. But all in all, Waddle had a nice season. They had no running backs last year, right? Who were their running backs?
Myles Gaskin and Duke Johnson towards the end of the year. They tried Phillip Lindsay for a game.
Okay, they upgraded there with Raheem Mostert.
Malcolm Brown. Was Malcolm Brown there?
Yeah, Malcolm Brown was there. Yeah. They upgraded there with Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds, and Sony Michel. That's a significantly better backfield than what the names we just mentioned. Devontae Parker is gone, but Parker at best has been a wide receiver 3 for his career, so not a significant loss. And obviously, they bring in Tyreek Hill, who has been one of the top receivers in the game for the past half decade. Not to mention, the Deshaun Watson rumors are officially put to rest as it pertains to the Miami Dolphins. So that, if you want to classify that as maybe a potential off-field distraction for Tua, who, by the way, handled that very well. You have to give Tua his props there. You have to give him his flowers there. He never wavered. He didn't fold in the face of the question marks about whether his replacement was on the way. But we all agree Deshaun Watson is a markedly better quarterback, a much more proven quarterback than Tua. Never in public showed that bothered him. I got to give him his credit for that. Now that's gone. They bring in Teron Armstead. Like you mentioned, they shore up the offensive line, which they sorely needed to do. Teron Armstead is considered by many to be one of the best left tackles in the league. The pieces are there for Tua this year in a way that they weren't last year, not even close.
Take away the name that you are talking about, and you could have been talking about Baker Mayfield last year.
Could have been.
That's my worry here with talking about all these additions and look at they solidified the O-line. The Cleveland Browns have had one of the best O-lines for the duration of Baker Mayfield's career, and he was playing with two of the better wide receivers of the past 10 seasons. Injuries aside, didn't work out for him. He's a backup quarterback right now, and the same thing can happen to Tua, despite the fact that now the organization. And this is another thing. The organization was willing to basically throw Tua to the wolves until that situation with the owner became public, and then they had to reverse everything, and basically spend all this money to make people forget that the Dolphins were trying to lose games for the past two seasons.
Yeah. Well, that's a feather in Tua's. That's another feather in Tua's
honestly, yes and no. Yes and no.
I think he has dealt with more off-field adversity than Baker Mayfield. And I think it's fair to say after we saw what happened with Odell, you're talking about Odell Beckham when he was with the Browns. Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say after seeing what he did once he got released and went to the Rams, we can pin their failures, their lack of ever making it work on the quarterback.
And my point is the same thing can happen to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and the Dolphins with Tua.
Sure.
Despite this narrative that they fixed the O-line and put all the weapons around them in the world. The same thing can happen to Tua. And Tua hasn't shown the baseline NFL productivity at the quarterback position that would lead me to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Now, I am a Tua owner in Dynasty, and he's basically my only hope at the quarterback position in the league where I own him in a Superflex league. And this is me saying this.
He's your Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He's my only hope. But I'm still low on him to the point where I put him on the trade block earlier in the league that I'm in with you and with Sam, who got another question for us about the Eagles, so we should...
We'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, I mean, bottom line is CXK, if I'm choosing any of these quarterbacks, if I'm choosing to sell any one of these quarterbacks, it's Tua. Is he a must sell? No.
But
But you can get the most from him now than you might ever be able to get from him value-wise ever again. It could burn you.
I agree with that.
He could turn into a solid NFL starter, but even if he turns into a solid NFL starter, nobody's talking about the Tua being a top 8 quarterback in the league. That's just not in his realm of outcomes. It really isn't the way that I see it. So if you can sell somebody on that perceived value now, I would do it.
I agree that he has the most, you could gain the most from a Tua trade of this crew. I'll just say I'm much less inclined to want to do it.
And I know you talk a lot about the third quarterback on your Superflex team might be the most important swing position
You play
on
super
your
flex. Yep.
on your super flex roster.
Your QB3 is your most
But even
important
if you
piece.
kick Tua to the curb, you still have your third quarterback.
Yeah,
Your third quarterback is Lance, and it's a question as to whether or not he starts. If you want to be forward thinking here, then you trade Tua to the Jimmy G owner or the Marcus Mariota, or not Mariota, Mitchell Trubisky owner, and make sure that you lock up some of these ambiguous quarterback rooms.
Like whoever's starting, you'll have the guy.
Or if you can trade Tua for Davis Mills plus, if you can trade Tua for Baker Mayfield plus, these are the type of moves that I would be trying to make if I'm trying to move Tua, trying to pick up a first or two, a first or a second, and a quarterback I can still plug in if I need him.
Or I'm not along the same level of thinking. We got news this week from Josina Anderson that Deshaun Watson is meeting with the league this week. We don't know for sure. We don't know the timeline yet, but we might find out what type of punishment Deshaun Watson is facing from the league. Depending on the length, maybe you could do Tua plus for Watson if that's something that you might be interested in. Because then it's like, all right, at least I know I'm getting something that has proven on any given Sunday to be a top 5 quarterback, to actually be that guy, the guy that we can only hope Tua could one day become. Something like that.
That I don't hate. That
being said, I think I'm higher on Tua than you are.
You probably are, but
I
like that
idea
of if you can move Tua at the height of his value for a much better quarterback at the lowest his value will ever be.
Right.
And still, you're going to have to give up more than Tua, but not nearly as much as you would if there was no legal situation. And then you're looking much better on paper than you are right now, and you didn't give up a ton. But outside of that situation, I also would be just trying to trade Tua, considering the other quarterbacks that I have. Because I would feel real happy going into the 2022 season with Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, and Kenny Pickett, plus whoever else you can throw in there to get.
Hang on. And we see a couple of questions in the chat. We will absolutely get to everybody. Iron, what's going on? Looks like he got an offer. CXK, you got an offer for Najee and Tua.
He wants Tua and Lance for Watson.
That's a little too much.
Yeah.
But Najee and Tua for Lamar, a couple of 2023 firsts. That's interesting. Jonnu is whatever. That's interesting. It's like, okay, now we're talking.
But you were recently offered that, so you can counter that and say, give me Lamar the 2023 firsts and something better than Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, give me something better
Tua.
than Jonnu.
And then, I would do that all day, because those two 2023 firsts could turn into 2023's version of two 2023 versions of Najee Harris. They could.
Or one of Najee and one of Tua.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you have Lamar.
And whoever else you get as the Jonnu add-on, but most importantly, Lamar. Yeah,
right.
I would try to work something out like that. Absolutely.
I wouldn't hate revisiting that trade. See if you can get a little bit better of anything better than Jonnu, which won't take much, but yeah, that's something worth exploring. No
Honestly,
doubt.
we've had a whole 30-minute discussions on whether or not Najee Harris was a sell before the draft.
Yep.
So if you can sell both of these guys at probably peak value for what they're going to be and get Lamar at a discount because they gave away all of his wide receivers, technically you can get Lamar at a discount too, and there's some rumblings that he's not going to be with the Ravens long term. I don't know if you've heard those rumblings. They're out there right now because he's trying to negotiate his new contract. Then he's negotiating his own contract. He doesn't have an agent.
I have a hard time believing he leaves Baltimore.
Me too, but that worry is out there in the public. So you got to
take that talking point and say, turn Jonnu into a 2024 second, and now we're cooking.
Yes.
Something like that.
But yeah, there you go, CXK. That is honestly, yeah, I would go back to that owner and see if you can work something out and iron out the small details there. See if you can get a little bit more than Jonnu on the other end. But yeah, I'd feel happy about that return.
Yes, sir.
And Sam, so the Eagles got an on paper have a typo. On paper have a dynamic offense. Are Devonta Smith and AJ Brown fantasy gold this year, or is it fool's gold because of the Jalen Hurts situation? What do you think? As the Eagles fan, what do you think?
It's somewhere in between. I think Jalen Hurts is better than people give credit for, because look at what he had to work with last year. There's numerous clips and highlights last year of Jalen Hurts throwing to the likes of Jalen Reagor, uncorking it deep, and Reagor drops the ball. This happened like at least 15 times last year. So Hurts' passing numbers would have looked even better had he had another competent receiver on the other side of Devonta Smith. Now he has that in A.J. Brown. The Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football, and Jalen Hurts has tier 1 quarterback rushing upside, which was one of the things I billed him as one of my main and top quarterback targets last year. Now it's year 2 of the offense. The Eagles have clearly put faith in Hurts. They didn't draft a quarterback this year. And they gave him a wide receiver 1 in A.J. Brown. We haven't seen Hurts support multiple high-end options for fantasy because he's only played 1 season. And he had Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and nothing else to work with. Now he gets a bona fide wide receiver 1. I think this would at least be smart. The Eagles are going to stray a little bit, not entirely, but I don't think they're going to lead the league in rushing this year. They did it last year pretty much. Yes, it worked for them and it worked for their personnel, but also they did it out of necessity. Because again, they just didn't have the weapons in the passing game to sustain all of the attempts that they were trying at the start of the season. So they reverted to a run-first team, and it worked well for them. I think they're going to deviate away from that a little bit. I think they are going to throw the ball a little bit more this year. I mean, that would make sense when you trade a first-round pick for, again, a bona fide wide receiver 1. Last year, Hurts had what? He passed for like 3,000 yards, 3,000 passing yards, only 16 passing touchdowns. Again, very little to work with in that department. 432 pass attempts. Again, he missed a couple of games. He missed 1 game against the Jets, and then he sat the regular season finale. So might he have passed for over? He probably would have gotten over like 450 attempts last year. If he gets over 500, let's say that's the benchmark. Let's say he gets 500. Let's say he gets the opportunity to throw the ball 500 times this year. A.J. Brown can still put up low-end wide receiver 1 numbers. I think there's going to be some volatility there. I think it could be up and down. A.J. Brown has also had issues staying in the lineup. He has missed time each of the past couple of seasons. And even last year, when we felt better about his prospects, he had some bust games, more than 1. So there might be some inconsistencies. But we have to remember, it's not like A.J. Brown is coming from one of the pass-happy offenses in the NFL. The Titans are one of the most run-heavy teams in the league, and they stayed that way even when Derrick Henry missed all of the second half of the season with his injury. They stayed that way. So the more I think about it, the more I think you don't have to move A.J. Brown down your rankings too much relative to where you would have had him had he not been traded from the Titans. Is Ryan Tannehill a more proven quarterback than Jalen Hurts? Yeah, sure. And completes his passes at a much higher clip. But again, Ryan Tannehill's 33. He's been in the league for a decade. Jalen Hurts is going into his second full season as a starter. And likes to be knocked for his arm strength. Go back and watch the tape. That's all I'll say. If you're worried about Jalen Hurts' arm, go back and watch him last year. I don't think the arm is the issue. I think A.J. Brown is a volatile, high-risk, high-reward, low-end wide receiver one. Now, Devontae Smith had a nice season last year. Operating as the Eagles wide receiver one as a rookie. Almost had 1,000 yards. Probably would have if they would have thrown the ball even a little bit more than they ultimately did last year when they completely reverted to a run-first offense in the second half of the season. Again, out of necessity. But he caught 64 passes. So he was good for 4 or 5 a game. 916 yards, not quite 1,000. Caught 5 balls. If you naturally expect him to take a step forward in his second season, I would think he clears 1,000 yards this year. Might be more of a high-end wide receiver 3, maybe a low-end. He could be a low-end wide receiver 2. Maybe be a low-end wide receiver 2. Again, this is all like, does Jalen Hurts put it all together? I don't think it's unfair to give Jalen Hurts the benefit of the doubt. Yes, there are some question marks, but given what he had to work with last year, he's got a significantly better situation this year.
I mean, I gotta disagree with you.
I know you're down on A.J. Brown.
Oh, no.
I have to knock him down a rung.
The Devonta Smith, the question here was, are Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown going to be viable for fantasy, considering the Jalen Hurts situation?
Yeah.
Devonta Smith was the wide receiver. You can talk a lot, all you want about the woes on offense and passing the ball that Jalen Hurts had to deal with in 2021. But he only got to 104 targets as the wide receiver one in this offense. Did he do well with the touches that he got? Yeah, 64 catches for 916 yards, 5 touchdowns. Solid. My problem is, does he see 104 targets again? I don't know. That could look more like many. That could look more like 90 targets. With A.J. Brown there, considering how much this team runs the ball and will continue to run the ball. Because what was one of their first things that they did this offseason? They made it a priority to re-sign Boston Scott. They did. They signed him right when major free agency moves were going on. When the Raiders were trading for Devontae Adams and before Tyreek Hill was traded to the Dolphins, the Eagles made it a point to re-sign Boston Scott. That's kind of strange. That, to me, is a little telling because Boston Scott is a guy that you probably could have waited until now to re-sign. And they made it a priority to get the running backs back into the room. That, to me, that signals we're still going to run the ball. We're still going to run the ball. A fair amount. Now, they might have a little bit of a sea change on offense, and Jalen Hurts might open it up a little bit more. I think, I think getting A.J. Brown on the team signifies that they are going to try to pass the ball more. But A.J. Brown being there scares me off of Devonta Smith. It does. Pretty much 100%. And A.J. Brown himself, he was the wide receiver 35 last year, I believe.
Sounds about right. He was very up and down and was in and out of the lineup.
Let me get his exact... A.J. Brown, wide receiver 32.
Yeah, he had a down year.
And, I mean, my problem with A.J. Brown is, at the end of the season, you look at the box score and you think, for only playing in 13 games, 869 yards looks pretty good. 5 touchdowns looks pretty good. But if you look in here, yeah, he has 11 game in week 8, 11 targets, 10 catches, 16 targets week 13, 11 catches, which is great, and you loved having him for those weeks. But week 3, 2 targets, 0 yards. Week 2, 9 targets, 3 yards.
Yeah, what's that about?
Week 10, 4 targets, 1 yard. That's just weird. That's weird
Yeah.
for a number 1 wide receiver. Week 17, 5 targets, 2 catches. Week 18, 6 targets, 4 catches. Those just aren't wide receiver 1 target totals. That's not wide receiver 1 usage. And what did he score at the end of the season despite missing 4 games? Wide receiver 35. And if he goes from a run-first offense with a better quarterback to a run-first offense with a lesser proven quarterback that's still trying to run the ball at a pretty heavy rate in 2022, they might ease off it a little bit. But how many 2-target, 4-target, 5-target, 6-target games is A.J. Brown going to have to deal with playing across from Devonta Smith, playing with Dallas Goedert, playing with Kenny Gainwell, who for some reason was catching a ton of passes last season? That scares me for A.J. Brown and for Devonta Smith. Pretty much any other wide receivers in this offense, I'm a little worried about. Because, yeah, there are probably going to be games in there where he gets 11 targets, 16 targets.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, there's just as much potential for 4-target games, 2-target games. And that's enough to scare me off of both of them. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts can't have a better season. I expect him to. But if I'm looking at these wide receivers and how they're going to perform this year relative to what they performed, the rate they performed at last season, I got to think Devonta Smith's totals are coming down, and A.J. Brown would be lucky to have the same totals he had last year.
Damn, lucky? We just went over how not good his season was. So his ADP is around 24. I mean, does that have to fall 10 spots for you? 15 spots for you?
A.J. Brown?
Yeah, he's the wide receiver 10 off the board right now.
I would not draft A.J. Brown as a top 10 wide receiver. No.
Would draft him top 15, which would put him in the Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman category, DJ Moore.
That would be the range in which I would draft him, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't see him falling that far.
No, he's not.
So to me, I'm going to end up with one of those other wide receivers over him.
Yeah.
I just am. And if he's being drafted wide receiver 10, I'd rather have, I mean, we talked about it a lot, Michael Pittman. I'd rather have him. He's probably being drafted behind A.J. Brown.
Oh, he definitely is. He absolutely is.
And this pains me as an owner in Dynasty who went out and made it a priority to get A.J. Brown on every team I have in Dynasty. And this kind of sucks. It does.
Well, you're being as unbiased as you possibly can. So the chat sorely appreciates that.
Jalen Hurts, though. Jalen Hurts. Do not sleep on Jalen Hurts this year.
No, do
not sleep on Jalen Hurts this year.
And his ADP has not, it's climbed. It's higher than last year, but it's not so significantly higher. Now, here's an interesting little tidbit. Devontae Smith's ADP is 73.5. Right next to DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to miss the first 6 games of the season. Adam Thielen is You'd rather have Hopkins?
Yes.
You'd rather stash Hopkins?
Yep.
That's fair. Hopkins, we've seen be a slam dunk top 3 wide receiver.
Because he was the wide receiver 10 before he got injured.
He was a wide receiver 1.
He was the wide receiver 10, and he was underperforming. If you remember, he wasn't catching touchdowns. I remember having conversations with you, and you were like, man, DeAndre Hopkins just isn't doing what he was last year. Even with Kyler the year before, 2020, he had a stellar year. Last year, through the 9 games, I think, that he was healthy, he was only wide receiver 10 because he wasn't scoring touchdowns as much. I would much rather have 8 games of top 10 wide receiver than 16, 17 games of a volatile wide receiver 3.
Okay. I think I like the situation a little bit better than you do. But I guess some of that is baking in the expectation that the Eagles throw more than they did last year. But obviously there's a lot of question marks still about this passing offense as a whole. It's been mostly unresolved so far. That being said, both of us are better than Jalen Reagor, so literally anything
you might
is
be.
an upgrade.
Not me.
I think I got some hands. I might drop a few, but I'm not getting paid millions to do it. So I guess we're slightly on different sides on this. Who asked? Oh, Sam asked the question. I think we're slightly different sides on this, but also for the last thing I'll say is I'm not pumping the hell out of them. I think it's as you described it. Is it between fantasy gold or fool's gold? I think it's somewhere in between. I don't know how much that helps, but it won't be stellar. It won't be like the world is ending.
When I'm trying to draft in fantasy, I'm trying to draft players that will outperform their ADP, at pretty much every spot that I'm drafting outside of, the first round. And
maybe there's not a ton of confidence that A.J. Brown can do that.
I don't know if he overperforms his ADP. I think he will. Hopefully, we're hoping he performs at ADP if he's being drafted wide receiver 10.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any route to him overperforming his ADP.
And there's no margin for error.
What I have an issue with.
Yeah. There's very little room for error.
And for that reason, in redraft and in any 2022-centric leagues, I'm out for this year. In Dynasty, we're playing a long game, hoping maybe if Jalen Hurts isn't the quarterback upgrade in year 3, then maybe they get one in 2023, and it looks better for him. But this year, yeah, I'm a little worried.
It's fair. It's fair.
But I hope that answers your question, Sam. I know you're probably gonna have issues with my take on the situation, but there you go.
Unbiased is better than not. Iron, what's up? CXK, appreciate you following us on Twitter.
Absolutely.
I don't know
if the Twitter is very active.
The Twitter, the page Twitter account hasn't been the most active, but we see you, so we appreciate it.
And Xavier Dubs, what's bracking, bro?
What's up, Xavier?
What's bracking?
Slim, what's going on? Look at everybody in here.
You got to throw Xavier a what's bracking.
What's bracking? I know. I was like, what is it?
Vocabulary last stream.
Yeah, my dorky ass was like, I don't even know what that means. I'm trying to stay cool. I promise. It takes extra effort.
Now, all right. So now we get to one of the bigger subjects of the past week.
Sure.
And Alex asks, what would it take to offload Landry on a rebuilding team? He's hard to move, so it'd have to be in season. Yeah.
I'm not offloading him.
On a rebuilding team, I'm honestly, I have Landry on a contending team. And I have tried to offload Landry since the league started. And I haven't been able to. Even for, I was offering people, just give me a third.
You got him and immediately regretted it?
Yeah, it kind of fell into my lap in an auction draft, and it was just like, all right, yeah, I'll take a stab on it. And he's been at the bottom of my bench for the entire time that league has been in existence, which isn't very long. But regardless,
couple of years, yeah.
I don't know if I'd be willing to trying to offload Landry either.
His value just went up naturally. Signs with the team. Signs in a good landing spot as far as I'm concerned.
Wait until the Michael Thomas drama really begins. and then once Michael Thomas once some setback happens in the Michael Thomas saga,
I hope
then
not.
You can sell Landry.
I hope not. I've been pumping Michael Thomas as a buy. but we'll see. Yeah, I'm not in a rush to try to offload Landry. He starts for them in 3 receiver sets now. He clearly pushes Marquez Callaway to the second unit. Traquan Smith to the second unit. Is Traquan still there? Deontay Harris to the second unit. Landry's better. He's older, but he's better than all of these guys. And to your point, if Michael Thomas has another, is slow to get back to the field, and Chris Olave is a rookie taking his rookie lumps, because we've seen that happen before, Landry could have his weeks where he is the team's wide receiver 1. And again, say what you want about Jameis Winston. We've seen him support, we've brought up a couple questions this stream about quarterbacks who haven't proven that they can support high-end fantasy talent. Can't say it about Jameis. Jameis has done it. Jameis has done it. Jameis has supported multiple high-end fantasy options multiple years. Now, I know one of those guys is Mike Evans, and he's well on his way to the Hall of Fame, but Jarvis Landry isn't chopped liver.
Landry doesn't technically fit with the mold of wide receiver that we normally think of would fit with Jameis Winston. We think down the field, YOLO ball type thing.
He's a YOLO ball, yeah.
Well, but Jameis Winston has gotten a lot more conservative in how he operates at the quarterback position.
We saw him much more efficient last year. Much more efficient. I mean, it was a minimal sample size. He tore his ACL after 6 weeks, but in those 6 weeks, he was significantly more efficient than we've ever seen him. I think Landry lends to that. I wouldn't be trying to just offload him, Alex. Hang on for now. I think the vibes for Landry can only go up.
I think there will be a time at some point in the year where he is operating as that team's wide receiver 2, and then you sell. But Jameis is one of 2 quarterbacks over the past 8 years who has provided us with 2 top 8 wide receivers in a given year. Godwin and Evans, I believe it was 2019.
Yeah.
Were both
Godwin was the
top
wide receiver 2.
8 wide receivers.
Well, Godwin was the wide receiver 2. I think it was behind Michael Thomas, and Evans, I think, was the wide receiver 8.
Yeah. Now, we don't often look at that team and say, yeah, but who was their wide receiver 3? It was, I believe it was Deshaun Jackson and Adam
one year of
Humphries.
Deshaun. Rashad Perryman had his moments where it was like, what? Yeah.
But no, regardless, yeah, I would hold Landry because despite the value bump that he received in going to the Saints, I believe that he will be receiving another value bump sometime within the next 6 months.
Yep.
And at that point, you can sell him to a contender. And what would you be looking to take? Whatever you can get at that point, because then at least somebody's trying to buy him off of your team. Right now, nobody's knocking down your door to get Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything of significant value. He is older, but I think he's got something left in the tank. And this is a good landing spot. And for what it's worth, he's coming home. Jarvis went to LSU.
He has the 4th most catches since 2014.
Yeah, I'll take that.
And one of the people
That's a savvy
ahead of him
vet that knows how to get
is
open.
Kelsey. So he is the 3rd
Pretty good
best
company. Pretty good
in
company.
terms of targets over the past 9 years, 8 years. So
Good
yeah,
company.
not somebody I'm trying to get off my team unless I can get good value for him, and I don't know if that will come until, as you alluded to, in the season, Alex.
Yeah. We got a chat to get to for sure. And we appreciate everybody's popping in here and asking questions and having a conversation. We appreciate that. We will get to everybody, we promise. We know the stream's a little behind. We are catching up to the chat. We will get to everybody.
We've been digging into these topics, y'all. So
we have.
Yeah.
we hope y'all like we hope y'all like your hosts long-winded. But Iron's got a question about a guy that you have been looking at as maybe not a dart throw, but like a late flyer in Dynasty drafts this year. What do you think about Isaiah Weston?
Isaiah Weston was one of those high RAS wide receivers that I was high on and said, hey, if you're in the 4th round and you can take a shot on him, go for it. I'm
Not a great landing
not,
spot.
You went to the Browns?
Cleveland, yeah.
I don't love. And was he drafted there, or was he an undrafted free agent? I think he was an undrafted free agent.
I think he went undrafted. Yeah,
For that reason, there are basically any running back that was drafted, I would take over Isaiah Weston. Even after the draft, if you're looking at who survived the draft as far as free agents that didn't get drafted, if you're thinking of going Isaiah Weston iron, despite everything that I said about Isaiah Weston a couple of weeks ago, pretty much any running back that was drafted I'd rather have over Isaiah Weston, and any wide receiver that was drafted in the first 6 rounds I'd rather have over Isaiah Weston.
Like waivers, sure.
I'd rather have Justin Ross over Isaiah Weston. I'd rather have, I mean, there are a lot of names now, looking at the situation that he's in and looking at
Kenny
the situations
Phillips.
that a lot of other players that were drafted are in. There are many players I'd rather have over Isaiah Weston. But what I will say is if you have a large taxi squad, throw him on there for 2 years, see if he becomes anything. If you don't have any space on your taxi squad, put him on. If you're on Sleeper, you can press the star icon and keep him on your watch list, because then you'll get news and notifications on Isaiah Weston. He's somebody I would keep an eye on, because yes, he went to a good team that technically needs help in the wide receiver room, but the team is also deep at young wide receiver, which makes me worried about Isaiah Weston. Is he Jalen Camp? Is he Seth Williams? Seth Williams was a guy last year in 2020 in the 2022 draft class. I believe he went to the Denver Broncos, and he was a guy, looking at his profile, I was really high on. But then he went to one of the deepest wide receiver cores in the league and didn't even make it onto the week 1 roster, because they had Sutton, Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Trinity Benson. They just had a whole bunch of dudes. And Seth Williams fell by the way. Yeah. You know,
he got traded for whatever that's worth. But
to the Lions. But regardless, Isaiah Weston could end up being one of those guys, because he wasn't drafted, didn't receive the draft capital. He can fall off the NFL roster he's on at any point, and he's no guarantee to be anybody's, to even land on a practice squad. Jalen Camp didn't land on a practice squad. Seth Williams, for all of his talent, didn't land on a practice squad. Josh Imahortabebe last year didn't land on a practice squad. These were all receivers that were drafted. So for a receiver that is undrafted, it would take a lot for me to get there. But thanks for the question, Iron. If you have any more questions about any ancillary players, you already know. But let's continue down this chat.
Slim's asking, can Brian Daboll have success with Danny Dimes? How he did with Allen and Mahomes.
He didn't have any success with Mahomes. Brian Daboll never played with Mahomes.
He did with that, but he did with Allen.
Yes. Not played, but
Allen,
coached. But
yeah. I think he's a great offensive mind. I love his philosophy, because I've loved the Bills' offense for the past couple of years. Because again, John, you talked about this earlier about when we were talking about top offenses in the NFL these days and how they don't rest on their laurels. The Bills are like the number one prime example of that, where it's like, oh, we're up 40. That's cool. We're gonna keep throwing.
Love it.
Yeah, that's the NFL. That's 2022 NFL football for you, and I'm here for it 100%. So I like the philosophy that Daboll brings to the Giants offense. They shored up their offensive line, a healthy Saquon, and we talked a little bit about this earlier about a potential buy low candidate relative to expectations. Saquon, relative to expectations, is cheaper than he normally would be. If Saquon is healthy and Danny Dimes is able to dump passes off to Saquon, it's not going to take that much of an effort for Danny Dimes to get his numbers up. That being said, it's not a terrible wide receiver core, but it doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. This is very much a work in progress on the Giants. Now, with Danny, much like Josh Allen, he can run. We've seen it. Daniel Jones is an athlete. You can't take that away from him. He can run a little bit. We've seen it. He might trip on the grass, but he can run. So
I trip on the grass too.
Hey, got him.
Hey.
There might be a couple people in here doing that. Danny's in good company. You're good. I think at the end of the day, the fantasy numbers could be there. Will there be results from an? There's a lot. We have not seen Daniel Jones elevate an offense like that. And with Allen, I've said this before. Not that nobody doesn't know this, but Allen took astronomical leaps at the quarterback position that we may have never seen before. So it's awesome that I don't know if I want to call Allen an outlier because the tools were there. It was just
I am willing to call Allen an outlier.
I don't think it's totally unfair to call him an outlier because the tools were there. The ceiling was there. But just because a player has the tools doesn't mean if a player had the tools, then a player like Josh Allen goes first overall every year. Then you can bank on the tools working out. It's kind of rare that happens. And then Allen, in basically, overnight ascended to one of the elite passers in the NFL. After what was his completion percentage his first 2 years? I don't think he cleared 60%.
So it was 61.9 and 62.5.
Okay, so he did clear 60.
No, that was Daniel Jones. 52.8 and 58.8, so you were right. Yes.
Yeah.
No, we've literally never seen a jump from a quarterback like we saw from Josh Allen from 2019 to 2020. It literally, in recent memory, hasn't happened. And one thing that Josh Allen has done consistently throughout his career is he's gotten better every year.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has gotten worse every year. He has regressed every year. 2019 yardage, 3,027 yards, 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 2020, 29-43, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And then 2021, 24-28 in terms of yards and 10 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. And last year, he was benched for Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm throughout the season at points. Was he benched or was it injury?
The neck injury. He wasn't benched for those guys. It was the neck injury. Okay. But yeah, he missed time.
My point being, can Brian Daboll bring stability to the organization? Absolutely. Can he save a quarterback prospect who was overdrafted in the first place?
Yeah. And
has regressed in every single year in the league, and in year 4 we're expecting some stability for him to help change his NFL fates around. I don't think that's going to happen for Daniel Jones. I just don't. I think Daniel Jones ends up being a backup somewhere. What did we just see from Mariota? He was the backup to Derek Carr for years. Mitchell Trubisky was the backup to the Bills, to Josh Allen in Buffalo for a year. And that's how he rehabbed his value. And now it looks like despite rehabbing his value, it looks like he's going to be the backup Kenny Pickett, despite the fact that he had high draft capital. Daniel Jones, high first round, mid first round draft capital. It doesn't guarantee
6th overall.
High first round draft
capital.
Then,
yeah, you were right. High.
But that doesn't guarantee anything in the league, especially if you've declined in your production every year that you've been in the NFL. He screams to me a guy that in 2023, with that quarterback class that's coming in, Daniel Jones is going to be a backup.
It's going to have a hard time finding
next
a job.
year. I am not high on Brian Daboll coming in and changing the perception and changing the career trajectory around for Danny Dimes. I just don't see it happening.
I agree with that. Because the Giants, I mean, we talk about the teams looking forward to the 2023 draft class as it pertains to the quarterbacks. The Giants are in that conversation. And the Giants are probably looking at one more year where the win-loss record is not very good. And they will be in a position to get one of those high-end prospects. I think Daniel Jones can put together a nice fantasy season for you this year, Slim. but maybe try to sell high.
As
Like
soon
wait
as you
till
can.
as soon as you can. Wait till the season starts. Let him have a couple of good games. Let him run around, do his thing, put up a couple of like a nice fantasy games, and see what you can get for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about him a lot. I would rather have, if you can find a way to trade Daniel Jones and get Baker Mayfield, I would do that. I would do that, despite the fact that there's no guarantee that this is in Dynasty, if you're in a rebuild or whatever. I would be trading Daniel Jones based off of the fact that he's starting this year for a guy that isn't starting this year but is better than him. Yeah, basically no faith in Danny Dimes. 0. And
well, he'll run around and put up some high QB2 numbers for this year.
Will he?
Yeah, I mean, just again, you have to with the rushing upside that he brings to the table, you can't rule it out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying QB1. He's not going to be a QB1.
Fair. Mid to low end QB2.
Fine. He'll run around.
I'm fine with that.
He'll run around. He'll dump it off to Saquon, and Saquon will inflate a few of his game numbers.
And Slim, you said Danny Dimes ain't bad. We saw flashes of good, and then his GM and head coach failed him.
They did.
We saw flashes of good in year 1, and I would argue that we haven't seen the flashes that we saw in year 1 since. Bless you, if that was a sneeze.
It was. Thank you. Tried to mute it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sit here and say Danny Dimes is a long-term answer in this league, but I think he could put up some sneaky numbers in a super flex league. Draft him as your QB4 and hope for the best. Maybe QB3.
And Sam says, for me, I just don't see a QB who has no O-line and 1 year left on his contract with not a lot of weapons. You like Daboll a lot. You just don't see it. He has the weapons.
The weapons are
The
there.
weapons just need to stay healthy. And now he has Wan'Dale Robinson, who should revitalize that wide receiver core even further. But, yeah, even with that in mind, even with them bolstering up their O-line a little bit, I think it's all for whoever they bring in 2023. I do not see Daniel Jones being anything more than a 2022 stopgap.
Agreed. Before we lose it, P. Diddy's in here as well. What's going on, P. Diddy?
P. Diddy, Papa Diddy Puff. What's happening?
Sorry, he's got the 110 on the table for Brandon Ayuk.
You're Brandon Ayuk, or you're getting you're 110.
He has I'm reading this as you are acquiring the 110 for Brandon Ayuk. That's how I'm reading it. If that's not correct, P. Diddy, let us know. But I'm reading that as
you have a boatload of wide receivers, so you're gonna give up your Ayuk for the 110.
No, that's good value. I like Ayuk this year, full disclosure. But
my problem with that is, who are you turning that 110 into? It would likely be another wide receiver.
Probably.
So are you willing to make a lateral move and hopefully luck into a wide receiver that might be better than Ayuk in the future? Or would you, maybe you can see if you can get a little bit more out of the owner. But to me, trading Ayuk for the 110 in this draft is a lateral move. And to me, I'd be like, can you make that 110 a 2023 first? Because that improves my ability to be able to diversify my strengths.
That's
because in this class at 110, you're looking at if Sky Moore falls, if Jameson Williams falls, if Chris Olave falls, one of the wide receivers who falls. You're not going for a quarterback here for the most part, I would think, unless you're on the clock. And at 110, Kenny Pickett's there, and you like Kenny Pickett.
If Pickett's there, then fine.
It's the kind of
even
move
if you don't
make
like
on
him,
the clock.
it makes sense.
But even then,
it
seems like a lateral move. If you're okay with moving away from Ayuk, I would try to get a 2023 first.
That's fair. Yeah, because in two quarterback, you're hoping Pickett is there, but he's probably not. And I can't advocate drafting Malik Willis or Desmond Ridder in the first round.
I've seen it happen, but I think it's
I've seen it happen, but I can tell you definitively I wouldn't do that.
And sorry for missing your question in the chat, man. I was scrolling back up and down. But appreciate you being in here, P. Diddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you as always. And everybody who's in here.
And Xavier Dubs was bragging. That's because AJ was
yes, he
was class all season. Yeah.
Yes, well, he was.
You traded him for Lenny and Waddle? I mean,
that's a hell of a return.
Wow.
That's a hell of a return.
Good job. Especially because we know where he's ended up now. And he could still be glass this season, which is something that we didn't factor into the analysis when we were talking about.
No, that is a long-term concern. That is a long-term concern with A.J. Brown, the double knee surgery. That is something that we hope is something that he can stave off, but not something that we can't or that we can ignore. We just can't. Yeah, AJ was in and out of the lineup not just last year, but there was a stretch at the beginning of 2020 where he missed. I think he missed the first month of the season as well. He played week 1 but got hurt week 1, and then I think he missed 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep.
He turned it on at the end of the season on ridiculous and insane efficiency, but he missed time then as well. So yeah, it's something that has to be highlighted.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever see A.J. Brown in a high-octane passing offense, which is kind of depressing to me. Not going to lie.
Siri, show me what A.J. Brown would look like on the Chiefs.
He'd look like Sky Moore. Ew.
Got him.
Not quite.
Let's
A.J.
move
Brown
down a little bit.
Is the next Jeremy Maclin. Ooh.
I don't want to sell him that short. Oh, Maclin had a decent career, but I don't want to sell him that short.
No, he had a decent 2 years.
Decent couple of years. He popped that first season in Kansas City. And he had a couple good seasons on the Eagles, too. But one good season on the Eagles. No, 2. I hope not,
what's a good A.J. Brown comp historically on the Eagles now? This is Dwayne Bowe.
There aren't any. They haven't had a player of his size. I don't even want to say his name, but since a certain Hall of Famer donned the midnight green, but he's not on that level. The Eagles have had a bunch of small guys for the most. Well, I guess Alshon was the last. Alshon was bigger. Alshon was is taller than A.J. Brown, but I guess somewhat similar mold. Not similar skill set, but similar from a physical perspective, I guess.
Regardless, y'all know how we feel about A.J. Brown.
We'll see. We've said our piece about A.J. Brown, and I know there was a little bit of a conversation in the chat about it. So why don't we skip on down? Slim is talking about how it's Gabe Davis season. Do you want to talk to that? Because you called Gabe Davis a post-draft winner, and I don't disagree with that, but you're the Bills fan here.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was mocking Breece Hall to the Bills, and I was speculating to myself, really, that they might go out and try to get a wide receiver. And they didn't. Outside of the 5th round Khalil Shakir pick, which I still believe is a great pick.
Jamison Crowder,
still 5th round pick. So a lot has to go into Khalil Shakir working out. There aren't a ton of 5th round picks who have panned out.
Very low. Very low.
I mean, we're looking at Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown.
That's 3 out of hundreds.
Yeah. Now, Gabe Davis himself was a 4th round pick who panned out. So
yes, he did.
But Gabe Davis, I mean, yeah, I went back and watched the highlights of Gabe Davis from that last playoff game that we saw him in.
He killed them.
Gabe Davis, he absolutely cooked.
He murdered them. It wasn't
but a
like
lot
contested
of it was
catches. It was just
Stephon
I'm gone.
Diggs was getting all of the coverage.
Yeah.
And Gabe Davis was just burning the second and third
running
cornerbacks on the team,
scot-free.
burning past safeties. Now, Kansas City's secondary cornerback and weren't all that great. But Gabe Davis still got it done. And
but he,
his
like
situation,
I said,
what has changed from his situation where we saw him in the playoffs till now? They
Cole
swapped out
Beasley's
Jameson
gone. They
Crowder
added
for
Jameson
Cole Beasley.
Crowder. Yeah. They added O.J. Howard.
Kicked out Emmanuel Sanders. They brought in Khalil Shakir. The only real addition is, James Cook and O.J. Howard. And O.J. Howard should be a bit player, and James Cook, we're not really sure he's going to have all that much of a role in year one.
Jury's out
a very
on
significant
that
role in
backfield.
year one. All I know is Gabe Davis should be operating in basically the same role that he was in last year's playoffs. Not in last year's regular season, because Emmanuel Sanders heavily involved in last year's regular season. Over the Davis, do it, take it all day. Now I'm looking at that like pretty even trade. I might rather have Gabe Davis considering he's 23 years old right now.
Yeah.
23 years old, going on 24, playing with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. His running mate on the other side, and Stephon Diggs is 29 years old. Not expecting a drop-off from Stephon Diggs, but still, Gabe Davis is the heir apparent to the wide receiver one role. Once that does happen, he's young, locked up for a while. No other incumbents coming in outside of Khalil Shakir, who again was a fifth-round pick. Nobody here waiting in the wings to take Gabe Davis's job. I traded to get Gabe Davis in every league I was in last year because I'm a Bills fan and I'm obsessed. But if you're trading to get him in all your leagues this year, probably gonna have to pay more closer to his ceiling in terms of market value, but it could still pay off for you. It could absolutely still pay off for you. I like Gabe Davis a lot. And yes, he's shown skill in the NFL. Most of it has to do with the fact that most of the defensive focus will be on the person playing opposite him, and he's playing with one of the best quarterbacks if not the best and most skilled quarterback in the NFL.
Yep. Can't hate it.
Love Gabe. James Cook, not so much. Yeah.
Oof. So Sam follows up that question. Would you target Gabe Davis or Mike Williams?
Mike Williams was the wide receiver 12 last year. Gabe Davis had one very, very, very hot playoff game that didn't count in fantasy unless you were playing that day.
He popped at the right time on national TV.
In literally one of the last games that we've seen anybody play football in. So that sticks in your mind.
It's a recency bias.
Obviously, it was an impactful game, so that makes it stick in your mind even more. But Mike Williams was the wide receiver 12 in a year where, at the end of the season, he missed games and Josh Palmer was taking his spot.
He faded a little bit, yeah.
And he got injured. He was a little injured last year. But Mike Williams, through like week 12, was the 8th best wide receiver in the league. And what has changed from his situation? They brought in Isaiah Spiller. Okay, cool. Don't care. Mike, I'd be going Mike if they're at the same ADP for me.
It's Mike
which
Williams.
I can't see them being at the same ADP for me.
Higher, and rightfully so. He's the better player.
Now,
a little bit more inconsistent.
He's older, more inconsistent. Only has 1 year of elite production. But Gabe Davis only has one game of elite production. So, yeah, I'd love Gabe Davis more than pretty much anybody.
It's Williams. Yeah. He's more proven. Yeah, it's Mike Williams. Is the chat lagging? I hope it's not.
I hope it's not.
It just buffered for a hot second, but I think we're okay.
Okay.
Xavier, so speaking of the Bills, we're staying on the Bills conversation. Where's a good place to pick up Josh Allen this year? 5th and 6th round the past 2 years. Yeah, you're gonna have to go all the way up to the top of the bottom of the 2nd round. This year, I've done, in the best ball drafts that I've done, which is one quarterback. Again, you're playing same format if you're getting him in the 5th and 6th rounds. I haven't seen him slip past the 301. Josh Allen goes. It's not the 3rd round. It's the 2nd round. He's going where Lamar Jackson was going after 2019. At this point, so to your point about Mahomes, if you want to play that game, Mahomes is the cheapest he has been since he took over the job as the starter for the Chiefs. So if you want to play that game of getting still a high quality asset, you can. But Josh Allen's the QB1 off the board.
Back in redraft this year is Kyler Murray, and it's not close. We've talked about it a lot over the past month and a half. Kyler Murray has been, while healthy, a top QB1. 2 fantasy quarterback in the NFL, second to only Josh Allen, and sometimes for large swaths of the season, he played better. Kyler Murray is going to be the best value at QB1 this year, considering people are dropping him down the rankings, and they're dropping at the end of the year. They're dropping him down the rankings, not having DeAndre Hopkins and swapping him out at least early in the year for Marquise Brown. It's hurting Kyler Murray. I'd be taking all this to be like, I should be drafting. Just let me finish this point, and then you got the floor. Kyler, his value always seems to be hurt at the end of the season because he's hurt. He hurts his value by getting hurt. But looking at this, they get DeAndre Hopkins back halfway through the year. So instead of halfway through the year, his value plummeting, halfway through the year, his value should skyrocket. What's another thing they got on their squad right now? One running back who's always injured by the end of the season and nobody else behind him, which means if James Conner were to suffer an injury, that's more on Kyler Murray's shoulders to be passing the ball, running the ball, doing everything he can to win games without James Conner. In a top 3 fantasy situation for quarterbacks this year. And he is a top 3 talent at the quarterback position from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
But what's his ADP right now? He's getting drafted as quarterback, 6?
He's getting drafted behind Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, and Herbert. So he's the QB. He's still the QB5 off the board. But yeah, you can get him at the 5-6 turn.
Fantasy value that he's given you when healthy and playing.
You just need him to stay. The when playing is the key phrase of that sentence.
Yeah.
But yeah,
kind of about anybody though.
Well, sure. You can
Josh Allen's overdue for getting an injury too.
Yeah, it's like or the guy putting up QB1 numbers through just 8 games. So yeah, you want that difference maker, even if it is just for half of a season. And again, we never predict or project injuries. So
no, I'm coming into the year hoping and projecting that Kyler Murray finally finishes the season healthy. And
at worst, quarterback for fantasy.
Sure.
Yeah, fair enough.
If we're expecting a step back in production based off of the lack of weapons now for Lamar, if we're expecting, to a point you made earlier in the offseason, maybe the Bengals take a step back after losing the Super Bowl. Kyler Murray. Mahomes is going to take a step back. Doesn't have Tyreek Hill. I don't care how many wide receivers you add. He will take a step back. Kyler. Allen. Mahomes. Or do you have Lamar before Mahomes?
I might, just because of the loss of Tyreek Hill. It's not totally unfair. I don't want to, Mahomes is excellent. We can't forget that. But yeah, that's a significant loss. Lamar lost Marquise Brown as well, but I don't think anybody's going to argue Tyreek Hill is a larger loss than Hollywood Brown. Now, the Chiefs supplanted that with more weapons than the Ravens did. They got Juju, they got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they drafted Sky Moore. The Ravens didn't do that, didn't supplant Marquise Brown with anything of significance in the wide receiver department. So, but Lamar has the most elite rushing upside, or one of the most elite rushing upsides of any of the quarterbacks, whereas Mahomes can run, but is definitely not that tier 1 rushing threat from the quarterback position that Lamar is.
All right, so Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, Kyler?
Sure.
Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, Herbert you have to put up there as well.
Herbert would be 5 for me. I would rather have Kyler.
But Kyler, I guess Kyler has the most upside, because Kyler can run like Lamar, and he's got, when DeAndre Hopkins is back in the fold, as deep of a pass-catching collection of weapons that Mahomes does. So he's got the best of both worlds in that regard. So maybe you do put him at 2.
All right,
and if you're drafting him as the QB5,
Allen's out of the way. Lamar is out of the way. Kyler is out of the way. Mahomes is out of the way. And Herbert is out of the way. As you will. But at 6, for the Hurts.
It's either Burrow or Hurts for me.
Okay.
They're 6-7. I could put Stafford at 8. Rodgers lost Devontae Adams. I would put him 10th.
I mean, Tom Brady was the number 3 scoring quarterback last season. No guarantee he has Antonio Brown or
he's closer to.
If I said AJ Brown, I meant Antonio. Regardless.
There you go.
Stafford.
Yeah, he's closer to 10 than he is to 5.
Stafford still got Cooper Kupp. Got an upgrade at second wide receiver in Allen Robinson, theoretically. Could still sign Odell Beckham Jr.
Still sign Odell.
I mean, I like Matt Stafford. I like Matt
Sean
Stafford
McVay
there too.
is the head coach. Yeah,
I like Matt
he's
Stafford
in that conversation.
But you can't hate on Burrow's weapons. It's more of a tier thing for me. So, yeah, I guess I'd go Hurts, rushing upside.
Yep. Hurts,
then Burrow, then Stafford.
Yep. Then maybe Brady, out of respect, even though I'm not going to be drafting. I'm not going to be drafting Brady this year. And then Rodgers.
Yeah.
Oh, we're forgetting about Russell Wilson, too. Yeah, we need to put some rankings out.
Yep, we do. That'll be on our list coming up soon, for sure.
That. We gotta do that.
Let's see, where are we? Yeah, Xavier, I agree. I agree with your take on them. I remember when you had Cam Newton in his glory days. You took him in the 3rd, made it deep into the playoffs, and I think Josh Allen could be better than prime Cam. I think he already is. I mean, Cam was great, but he never had the arm that Josh Allen currently has. And he's never had the weapons that Josh Allen currently has. Prime Cam's number 1 wide receiver was Kelvin Benjamin, and he made it work. And his number 2 receiver was Devin Funchess, bro.
It was Greg Olsen was his.
It was Devin Funchess was his number 2 wide receiver. So Cam might have gotten the short end of the stick there, because I believe he brought the Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess team to the Super Bowl, which is crazy. Maybe there was another wide receiver in there. Did Ted Ginn play for that team?
He had Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen, Ted Ginn, Christian McCaffrey.
Ted.
He had other players there
too. The Super Bowl run, but yeah, he had McCaffrey.
He wasn't there in the Super Bowl run?
No.
Okay. All right. Then it was
Jonathan
Stewart?
Jonathan Stewart. It was Jonathan Stewart.
All right. Yeah. Well, regardless, Josh Allen has better weapons than Prime Cam ever did, and he has a better arm than Prime Cam.
Oh, easily.
So while Cam fell off as soon as he started getting those injuries, Josh Allen should be able to transition into pure pocket passer at a more graceful trajectory than Cam did, because Cam never did.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Just going down. Slim has Malik. You got Malik Willis and Burks on your taxi squad. It's a deep roster. On your roster before the season starts. I don't think you're going to be able to leave him on your taxi squad. Willis, yeah. Haskin, yeah. Burks.
I'm sorry, my cat is just wilding. Come on, bro.
Omelet's coming to say hi.
Hey.
But
yeah, I mean,
Slim, I think Burks starts for you sooner than later.
I like having those three Titans. I like having those three Titans. Haskin is not somebody that we talked about pre-draft.
No.
But I love the landing spot. So.
Yeah, the long-term outlook is it's a wide open opportunity.
And yo, Alex, yeah, definitely shout out to Tariq Cohen, gotten the short end of the stick multiple times, like years in a row now.
I feel, and then the if anybody didn't see the article that Tariq Cohen wrote in the Players Tribune, I highly recommend going and looking that up and checking it out if you've got a half-hour time to kill. He's been through so much. Tariq Cohen's been through so much, and I can't think of anybody who's been getting the worst end of it repeatedly again and again than Tariq Cohen. This might be a career ender for him. I think it is. I would love that that's not the case.
Apparently, on the video, you could hear a pop, which is indicative of a Achilles tear. And this is right after coming back from an ACL tear. And I think it was 2 ACL tears. I think he tore his ACL twice.
I think it might have been ACL, MCL. Yeah, he tore it twice.
So, yeah, no, I think this is a career ender for Tariq Cohen. And I hope that he can battle as a player. But hopefully he can find some other way to contribute. Or just bounce back from this, man, because this can be suffering something like this back to back to back, especially when he was putting out a workout video to get re-signed, has got to be like crushing. So I hope, wish him a speedy recovery too, and just hope that he bounces back.
Yeah, I've read on overthecap.com that his career earnings are somewhere around the range of about $12 million. So if there's a glass half full here, it's that he's set up for life, and he has potentially set up his family for generational wealth, which is more than anybody could ask of solace in that. But yeah, it's awful news. It's just the latest bad piece of news that Tariq Cohen has had to endure. Shout out Tariq, man. I hope he bounces back from this in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his stats from 2018, 99 rushes for 444 yards and 3 touchdowns, but also 71 receptions for 625 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air. He was slightly ahead of his time there in terms of the usage from the running back position. He was really the first running back that I saw do that, put up that kind of stat line outside of the Patriots running backs and James White and Dion Lewis and Chris Thompson for the then Washington football team.
Yeah.
He was kind of the only other running back that I saw do that, and that was in 2018, so it's now 4 years ago. So, again, to your point, generational wealth, good for him. I just hope that he can bounce back from this one. He seems to be the type to be able to bounce back, though.
I hope so.
He did from his ACLs 2 years in a row, so yeah, but unfortunate nonetheless. Xavier, big 3 on a 53-man roster, more like big 12 to 20.
We're
Iron, he had 12 games less than Watson, but 300 plus more receiving yards.
Who are we talking about, Burks?
No, this was from a while ago. This was when I think we were talking about Daniel Jones at this point. Because Slim says, my bad, GM for the Giants comes from KC. That's when we were talking. I don't know who you're referencing here.
I'm not.
Iron, let us know who you're referencing, and we'll get back to that. Sam, you already know, and you're legit fascinated by the Chargers this year. Another Mike Williams question. What do you think he will end at when the season ends? Wide receiver 1, 2, or 3?
2. I mean, he set the world on fire for the first half of last season, where I think he was a top 5 receiver, but then he tapered way off. Again, injuries were a bit of a play there, but there were games where he played and was putting up some dud performances. So even with a fantastic quarterback in Justin Herbert, Mike Williams was still a little up and down, especially in the second half of the season. But we've officially seen his ceiling, and his ceiling is bona fide wide receiver 1. He just didn't prove that he could sustain it over the course of an entire season. So I'll say wide receiver 2. Is there upside for more? Sure. He's attached to Justin Herbert. Herbert's a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. I would, or depending on who you ask, he's top 7. Let's put it that way, no matter what. Whether you're talking NFL or fantasy, Herbert's excellent. And we still saw inconsistencies from Mike Williams. I think he settles in as a strong wide receiver 2. He'll have his wide receiver 1 weeks. He'll have his what the hell wide receiver 4 weeks as well, though, where it's like, what happened there?
That's just the case with the outside clasher.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to note with Mike Williams is he finished 6th in end zone targets last year with 16, but only caught 5 touchdowns.
That's not
in
so
the red
good.
zone. So he should experience some
good.
positive touchdown regression if his role doesn't change. And based on who they brought in, it doesn't look like his role is going to change. The only real change out here is moving from Jared Cook to Gerald Everett. That's the only real change on the starting lineup on offense when you're looking at the skill positions that matter when you're talking about Mike Williams. There's going to be some volatility. He should experience some positive touchdown regression, despite the fact that he finished as the wide receiver 12 in fantasy. He should be set up for more. And it was the wide receiver 9. I'm mistaken.
So we've seen him be a wide receiver 1, but that was supported by an insane start to the year. Where I think
but
was
he
maybe the wide
should
receiver
have,
5.
based on the stats, should have scored more touchdowns than he did, despite the fact that he overperformed over the first half of the year and then fell off. He should have still caught more touchdowns. He should have finished higher than wide receiver 9, even though that is what he ended up finishing, which is still great. 1 spot behind Stephon Diggs, 1 spot ahead of DK Metcalf.
He's proven he can be a wide receiver 1. He just needs to find some level of consistency. Until then, I'll put him as a high wide receiver 2. But we saw the wide receiver 3 and 4 weeks, and it was, that was also somewhat consistent in his season last year.
Yeah,
he exploded to start the season, but he had a dry spell that lasted multiple weeks. So
he's probably a very high-end wide receiver 2. I don't know if I can guarantee putting him in a wide receiver 1 conversation, because there are so many wide receivers that we technically like more.
I can't do it yet. He's close.
High-end wide receiver 2 for sure.
He's close, but he's not quite a wide. I can't quite rank him as a wide receiver 1. So, yep.
And Sam, where does Dawson Knox fall for fantasy tight ends this year?
High.
Tight end 7, tight end 8.
Yeah. I mean, he's a touchdown machine.
Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, Waller, Hawkinson, and then the Dawson Knox tier.
And then the Knox tier, where
Goddard,
I would put.
I was thinking Goddard might go ahead of him until
I might
this
put
trade.
Goddard ahead of him.
Until this trade, because I think the target share that he's going to be working with is not going to be as much as we were projecting when it was just Devonta Smith, maybe a rookie, and then Goddard. Now with A.J. Brown there, that J.J. Brown qualifies as a target hog in a run-heavy offense. So I don't know if we can put Dallas Goedert up there, because I'd rather a tight end in a pass-first offense with a great QB than a tight end in a run-first offense with a unproven quarterback.
A little bit more of a question mark. Yeah,
Knox,
he's in that tier. If you want to put Knox ahead of Goddard, that's fine. He's in that tier with like Gesicki. Maybe Freiermuth is like a run below.
He's 7 for me. It's him.
Yeah, he's a tight end 1.
Dalton
he's
Schultz.
Tight end 1. Schultz is in there. Schultz is in there as well.
And I love Dawson Knox, and I would love to be able to put him higher. There were times when I had him higher than tight end 7, but realistically looking at the fact that they brought in O.J. Howard, so he will be splitting reps at the position to some extent. Tight end 7. Yeah.
Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, Waller, Hawkinson respectfully have to be all over him.
Yes. And we got another tight end question. Is Freiermuth a valid pickup this year with Kyle and no Big Ben?
So I would say
Kenny Pickett, you mean?
Kyle. Well, with no Big Ben, yeah. I mean, I have some concerns with Muth because a lot of his production was buoyed on, he scored, 7 touchdowns last year?
Yeah, he was scoring a touchdown a game on 4 targets.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Now, we can talk about how the Pittsburgh Steelers should have a quarterback upgrade regardless of whether it's Trubisky or Kenny Pickett under center this year, just because Ben Roethlisberger was cooked. But the main beneficiaries of Roethlisberger being cooked were Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth.
And no Juju. You have to throw that in. No
Juju.
No Eric Ebron, I believe, got banged up a little bit halfway through the year, and then Freiermuth got moved into the position where
Freiermuth became the guy.
The tight end one. So, there are other factors there that contributed.
But also, here's the thing. People like to bring up the fact that Juju's not there anymore. Juju missed a lot of last season due to injury anyway. So you can almost you were able to erase him last season during the season.
Right, but they replenished their ranks is my issue. Last year it was Deontay, Claypool, and then arguably Freiermuth in the passing order. This year it's Deontay, Claypool, George Pickens. Then you're looking at Pat Freiermuth, and that's not taking into account Najee Harris. That's not taking into account the fact that they did bring in Miles Boykin. They did draft Calvin Austin. We're not super high on those players, but they could take somewhat of a role in this offense too.
Here's my thing about Freiermuth. Again, a lot of his production was based on touchdowns, which are the most high variance statistic you can look at year to year. Freiermuth's ADP in redraft, could I spell his name?
It is a weird one.
Yeah.
There's an E and an I and an
F-R-E, yeah. His ADP is 122. That's cheap. Or it's not backbreaking. He's the tight end 11 off the board, so he's being drafted as a fringe tight end 1. Just ahead of Mike Gesicki, by about 4 or 5 spots, ahead of Rob Gronkowski by another 7 or 8 spots, ahead of Robert Tonyan by about 10 spots, ahead of Albert O by about 15 spots, ahead of Irv Smith by about 20 spots. You see where I'm going with this. Cole Kmet's way down there at 152, followed by Tyler Higbee, David Njoku. There was enough of Freiermuth relying on touchdown production last year for me to say he's not a bad pick, but there are cheaper alternatives 10 and 15 picks down the board at the tight end position that I think I'm a little bit more interested in as far as rolling the dice, because if I'm taking Pat Freiermuth, and I know I'm comparing apples to oranges now, but I'm missing out on Ramondre Stevenson. I'm missing out on Ronald Jones. I'm missing out on Rashad. I know Ronald Jones isn't spectacular, but people like him this year at an ADP of 128 in the Chiefs offense. I'm missing out on Rashad White. I'm missing out on Jacoby Myers. I might be missing out on Michael Carter. And then, again, the names that I mentioned at the very same position, Robert Tonyan, who we're both high on this year with the lack of receiving options in the Packers passing game. Albert O is being drafted as a not even a high-end tight end 2, as a middling tight end 2. Irv Smith is being drafted as a middling tight end 2. And then even further down the board, Jahan Dotson, Tyler Algier, and then my guy Jarvis Landry, whose ADP is about to climb. Actually, it's already climbed about 20 spots. Remember when I told you last week I had him a lot of best balls? His ADP is already climbing. Anyway, I don't hate Freiermuth. I think there's enough potentially working against him this year, where I don't want to rely on the fact that he scored 7 touchdowns. Now there's a new quarterback in the mix, and there are tight ends 10 to 15 spots who I like just as much.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth had a great rookie season. For a tight end, that is rare.
Yeah, he did.
But you don't want to, when you dig into the numbers, you don't want to overreact to it, because it was, when you're looking at the box score, the majority of what we liked about Pat Freiermuth's season last year was the touchdowns. And we just talked about Mike Williams having variance in the touchdown department, and he's due for positive regression. Not theoretically, looking at the numbers, Pat Freiermuth is due for negative touchdown regression. And he didn't hit 500 yards passing or receiving on the year.
Yeah.
My issue with Dawson Knox, who we just brought up, before Dawson Knox's breakout, was that he was a 400 to 500 yard touchdown dependent tight end who didn't score touchdowns. That's when Dawson Knox was ranked, tight end 25, tight end 26. Because, basically the same role, he just wasn't getting the touchdowns. He wasn't a priority in the red zone.
Yep.
There's no guarantee that Pat Freiermuth is going to be this godsend in the red zone next year or into the future. It could happen. He could just be a touchdown magnet. But there's no guarantee there. And because he relied so much on the touchdowns, if he even had a little bit of regression and only scored 4 touchdowns on those and had 497 yards, now you're looking at a top 20 tight end, not a top 10 tight end.
Yeah.
So I would rather go elsewhere, and tight end is one of those, if you're not getting, we talk about it a lot, if you're not getting a top 3, top 4, top 5 tight end, punt the position. And this is a great year to punt the tight end position. It is.
I agree.
So if you're not getting one of those top 5 guys that we mentioned, I would wait and see if you can grab a Troutman or Smith. Gerald Everett. Noah Fant is a guy that nobody like. Alberto. I would rather have Alberto than Pat Freiermuth.
I mean, I'll take I'll roll the dice. Yeah. I'll roll the dice.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And Xavier Dobbs.
Mike Gesicki's going after him, or going as the tight end 12 off the board.
Yeah, but that's tight end 12? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a value.
So
Look out for that.
I'd rather have Gesicki.
Yeah. At tight end 12 value, normally Gesicki is not a guy that I'm looking out for, but to get him, who was the tight end 4 at one point last year,
he tapered off, but
for the tight end 12 value. Ooh, yeah.
Yep, his ADP is 125.6. So.
And Xavier's got
cheap.
the last comment here, unless anybody else has anything they want to throw into the chat. He says, but Kyler's got glass shoulders, though.
Yeah, he has
true.
not stayed healthy the past 2 seasons.
But he's a young quarterback who can still, he can put, if he puts together a healthy full season, it will be one for the fantasy record books. It will. You can almost guarantee it. If he is healthy all season, we're going to be talking about Kyler Murray's all-healthy season like we talk about Lamar Jackson's MVP season. We will.
Definitely. We certainly could. And Kyler's got the weapons in the passing game once DeAndre Hopkins comes back.
And what's the most important, if you're expecting to be a contending team, what is the most important part of your schedule? The playoffs.
Yeah.
And he'll have DeAndre Hopkins back for the playoffs.
Yeah. If people are scared off and Kyler's ADP is like Well, I don't like his first 6 games because he won't have DeAndre Hopkins. He still has Marquise Brown. He still has Zach Ertz. He still has solid ancillary options in Rondale Moore and A.J. Green. And he's got James Conner, who we have been off of, but put together an RB1 season last year and is a viable pass catcher.
And should be an RB1 for however long he can stay healthy this season. We haven't talked.
No doubt.
We've talked about him probably not being
Sparingly.
healthy all season because that is his. If you look back at the history of James Conner, every year he gets injured at some point and doesn't finish out the year. But this is another one. If it all goes well for Arizona and they can all stay healthy all season, you'll see something special. You will. I'm not out on Kyler Murray the way that a lot of people are. And for what it's worth, I think a lot of the issues that people have with Kyler in terms of winning games, not his injury woes and not his shoulder and all that, but winning games has a lot more to do with Cliff Kingsbury than it does with Kyler Murray.
I mean, yeah, if there's one Achilles heel, it's the head coach. But
it's not his glass shoulders, it's the head coach. And the GM, and Steve Keim's an idiot.
Yeah, he's not the best. But even with that front office setup, to your point, we've seen him over the course of an extended stretch of any given season be the QB1 for fantasy, or QB2 or 3 at worst. We've seen it. So he almost feels situation proof, and that's rare.
He is situation proof until he gets injured, and that's his Achilles heel. But
right, but like I said, I'd rather have the QB1 for 8 games than the QB12 for 17.
Especially in a 12-team league, because
Yep.
there are quarterbacks. Then you can stream quarterback.
Yep.
And if you go that route and it happens, and you're listening in, we can help you figure out what to do.
We'll navigate those waters when it comes
quarterbacks.
time. Yeah.
Yep.
But if I'm 6-2 through the first 8 weeks, and then I only need to win a couple more games to ensure a playoff spot, I take that every time.
Yep. But I think that about does it. We are at the end of the chat here. If anybody has any other comments for us to go over, let us know. But thanks to everybody who contributed to the chat. We had a great turnout today. We love talking with y'all. To all the members, we will be back tomorrow, same time.
Yes, sir. Members only stream at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you do want to keep the conversation going, if you do, again, I mentioned this at the top of the show, but if you think of a question or a comment that you want to talk through or ask us, the Discord is open. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. It is I think it's the second link. Yeah, it is. It's the second link in the description of this video and every video on our channel. Come on in. If you don't have Discord, it's just like setting up like for an email address. It's free. Discord in and of itself is free. And it's a nice little opportunity to kind of hang out with the community whenever you want and ask questions or bring up topics of conversation. As it pertains to the members, if you're not a member yet, we are officially at 9. We are 1 member away from potentially being able to set up a 12-team league. We're hoping to get a 14-team league going. We do want to experiment with 14 and 16-team leagues, but we would have what we were hoping for as far as the bare minimum of members to set up a members-only fantasy league.
Yep.
You can play fantasy football with us this year if you do choose to be a member. There are details there in the first link of the description of this video and any video on our channel. So check that out if you're interested.
Any video that we put out since memberships went live.
Since memberships went live back a couple months back. I don't remember the specific date. Regardless, if you've got any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. The Discord is a great way to do that. Or you can comment on any videos if you don't mind doing that as well. But thank you guys as always. Appreciate the engagement. Appreciate the likes. That does that helps this video with the algorithm, because at the end of the day, we just want to have a conversation as civil as it possibly can be, of course. And yeah, we're going over 2 hours easy these days. Just happy to talk shop with anybody who wants to come hang out with us. So we appreciate you guys.
We are happy that we have the draft in the books. We're happy that we have our rookie drafts in the books, because now we can really look forward towards the 2022 season. It's getting closer, y'all. It's getting closer. So can't wait for that.
Football's in the air, man.
Thank you again for chilling with us over the past few hours. We will be back Thursday, 6 p.m. EST for all y'all non-members. And for all y'all members, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll figure out something to do with y'all, whether that's doing another mock with y'all or
we'll figure something out.
We'll figure something out. But regardless, thank you guys. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody.